Chapter 253, Desire Wealth in Shiger. Shiger fell down to the ground, warmed up his arms and legs for a while and turned towards the others, sickly smiled, then looked at Chao Jilan and others confined in the cage. The moment Shiger appeared, Chao Jilan, Chu Yanqing, and Gu Linglong felt as if their world had collapsed. A long pursuing way from the Vault Sea area to here, before having entered the Abyss battlefield, in the combat with the Ying family, they had gone through many losses. It had not been easy to enter the Abyss battlefield. Inside this collapsing castle, because of a sudden outbreak of Shiger's, they again suffered serious losses. Thinking again carefully, Chao Jilan realized that since their initial confrontations with Shiger, their qi was constantly decreasing, and that they could never occupy anything from Shiger's body. Currently, they were being confined in this damn place. Shiger, on the contrary, became the distinguished guest of this pagan race, could not only talk but laugh freely with Di Shan, patriarch of the pagan race, and also be rewarded by them. What did happen? They were all human beings. Why was there such a big difference between them and Shiger? Not only Chao Jilan and the others wanted to vomit blood, but Yaji was also very angry. He had wanted to ask something but had been stopped by Yimeng, very unhappily. Sure, Shiger. ECU by bewildered, her beautiful face turned red. Hey, these 3 female prisoners are for you. The faces of Chao Jilan and the others slightly changed. Everyone clenched their teeth and gums. Nodded smiling, Shiger coldly looked at Chao Jilan. You did not expect that this could have ever happened, didn't you? Sooner or later, you will not die easily. Chao Jilan's graceful body shivered a little. Angriness and panic flared up in her eyes. If you dare to disgrace us, even in being a ghost, I will never forgive you. Being a ghost? Shiger burst into laughter. I am afraid that you will not even have a chance to be a ghost. If I had wanted to kill you, I definitely would have made both your soul and spirit perish, never transmigrate. Thus, even in being a ghost, you cannot and will not take revenge on me. When speaking these sentences, Shiger's expression was cheerful, talking as if crushing people to ashes and perishing people's souls and spirits were just his common pleasures. Di Shan raised his eyebrows and nodded his head. Little rascal, you are very cruel. No wonder why you have so many pursuers, but you are still alive. That is obvious. If not, he would not have had the heaven flame. The patriarch of the Black Wings clan slowly stepped towards to the cage confining Chao Jilan and the others and swung his arm. Different currents of silver lights like a chain of clouds went into the cage, then alternately crept into the bodies of Chao Jilan, Chu Yanqing, and Gu Linglong. The 3 of them were very frightened. Boom. The cage broke, leaving a hole. 3 people, Chao Jilan and the other 2, felt as if they were being grabbed by an invisible hand, floating out of the cage towards Shiger, and slowly descended in front of him. The 3 female prisoners stood up, their charming bodies slightly trembled, the brightness in their eyes faded. Their entire body's energy was gradually being sealed. Currently, these 3 girls have no more powers to use, and are like ordinary people so they cannot harm you. Yuro smiled, mildly looked at Shiger. From now on, you can freely violate them as you wish, haha. For the future of our 2 races, sacrificing these 3 girls was still a very good bargain. Yimeng's expression was musing. There flashed up a god light between his eyebrows. 3 peculiar souls flew out, and then crept into the point between the eyebrows of the 3 female prisoners. Chao Jilan's face showed pain. She definitely could not stand it, and held her head moaning. I have put the death-binding thought into their heads. If they have suicidal intentions, that seal will spread out, and their bodies will be motionless. Yimeng sickly smiled, speaking to Shiger. You can be comfortable with using their bodies freely, without having to worry about them committing suicide. Shiger was surprised, smiled and nodded. Thank you. Rotter. Chao Jilan and other 2 simultaneously shouted. There was full of resentment in their eyes. They resented Shiger to the bone. If they could have gotten out of the constraint, they would perhaps have risked their lives in killing Shiger. No need, you just need to destroy the shelters well for our 2 races, not even mentioning these 3 female prisoners. Even the demonic Sound Clan's girls can also be yours as easily as flipping your hand. Yimeng harumphed coldly. But if you cannot help our two races, haha, I will make you feel as if it was better to die than to live. Don't waste more time, Dishan frowned, showing his impatience. This little rascal's cultivation progress is related closely with our two races' future. I will temporarily stay here, watching his progress. The matriarch of White Wings clan gently smiled. I think everyone should try a little harder. I remember that our two races have some useful things for the progress of this human warrior stage. Because of everyone's benefit, I think we should be more generous. Shiyan's face became excited, laughing out loud. Dishan, Kaba, and the others looked at one another. Everyone had a freakish face. Their eyes kept moving. The White Wings clan has the White Jade Spirit Fruits, which has a big effect on stabilizing one's mental state. The White Jade Spirit Fruit has been refined for more than 1,000 years and produced only 3 fruits at a single time. I have commanded my people to bring one here. For the welfare of our two races, we've already given our fortune, Yuro smiled and said. Upon her words, the faces of Dishan and the others drastically changed. White Jade Spirit Fruit, Yeji, DCU Bai, Shuefei, and the youths of the new generation of the demonic sound clan could not stand screaming terribly. Yeji's eyes showed a sense of conspicuous greed. The White Jade Spirit Fruit was the pagan treasure of the White Wings clans. It could only have been produced in an abandoned area where the sun-moon spirit was prevented. Each of the White Jade Spirit Fruit was extremely precious. It was highly useful for stabilizing and nourishing the soul. Even though the Wings race had difficulty in soul cultivation, using one of the White Jade Spirit Fruit could have made a great breakthrough in one's soul mental state. For the people of the demonic sound clan, the White Jade Spirit Fruit was even more precious. They were natural experts in soul cultivation, thus, after using one White Jade Spirit Fruit, their soul accomplishment would have grown tremendously. After Baby of the demonic sound clan was born, and in using one of the White Jade Spirit Fruit, their soul would be remodeled, directly reaching the strength of a warrior at the stage of disaster. This was a miraculous treasure which could make a soul mutate. In this abandoned land, the White Jade Spirit Fruit of the White Wings clan was absolutely an extremely precious treasure, which had a great attraction to either the Wings race or the demonic sound clan. Yuro had gotten crazy. She dared to take one White Jade Spirit Fruit just because of one human guy? Was she really public-spirited and selfless like this? For the two races' future, she really devoted a fortune. Yaji breathed hastily, his face turned purple with rage, and glanced at Shurian abnormally fiercely, regretting that he could not have put Tenhim in his mouth and devoured him. Such a waste of a heavenly gift. Such a disgrace to a heavenly gift. What qualifications did that little human rascal have? How come is it that he could have a White Jade Spirit Fruit? What is it that the matriarch of the White Wings clan want to do? Could it be that she has a crush on this little rascal? Hasn't it been said that the matriarch of the White Wings clan should always be pure, that she could not be married her entire life? Many thoughts glided in his mind. Yaji was angrily clenching his teeth, and said to himself that if he had a White Jade Spirit Fruit, he would efficiently make the most use of this fruit, in increasing his power to become one level higher. What a pity! Matriarch Yuro, you're not kidding? Kaba's face was extremely weird with wide-opened eyes. This little human rascal is worthy enough for you to use one of the treasures of the White Wings clan. Yimeng, Tianmo, and Dishan were also astonished, looking at Yuro. At first, Shurian had not known about the wonder of this White Jade Spirit Fruit, but after carefully observing Yaji, Kaba, and the others, he understood that the White Jade Spirit Fruit was a marvelous treasure. If not, these people would not have been that surprised with such strange faces. What had Yuro wanted to do? Hadn't I just played with her just a little? And she already has a big crush on me? Did I really have such a big lustful attraction like that? Shurian thought to himself, but kept back all his astonished feelings with an indifferent face and pretended not to know anything about the White Jade Spirit Fruit. Didn't you see that the change of the Sound Beast Mountain was really strange? Yuro's eyes were gradually getting severe. She spoke with a serious face. The control style outside the Sound Beast Mountain has been bigger and bigger. The control style inside of it has been also getting stronger and stronger. Do you not really think of anything? Shouldn't the ancestors of the two races have had already shared the same thoughts about this anomaly? Dishan, Yimeng, Etianimo, and Kaba were shocked, seeming to realize something in a sudden. Their eyes were now full of fear. You're saying? Dishan wanted to say something but stopped, glanced at others nearby, and finally did not continue. I think this should be it. Yuro smiled miserably. This is our only chance, but maybe also a route towards our utter destruction. What to do specifically? I think everyone already had your plans. I will go back to the Black Wings clan. In 5 days max, I will come back with a black-head lotus. I hope he will not disappoint me. Dishan's face was a little confused, staring at Shiryen. He then swung his arm, leaving. Huge black wings flapped a couple of times, and his shadow had completely disappeared. Black-head lotus, Yudji felt cottoned and swallowed constantly. His eyes sparked peculiar lights. His facial expression was that of half smiling and the other half crying. On the city wall, the youths of the demonic sound clan, including Shuefei and Ecu Bai, were shocked. Their eyes lit up, bewilderedly looked at Shiryen. Their faces were as fierce as if they had wanted to devour him. Dishan stopped by Duolong and convinced him to offer a bottle of the Heaven Fountain concentrated water. Yuro looked towards Dishan's leaving direction and hastily said to him. Dishan had disappeared out of sight, but his voice sent out from afar. Okay. What? Yudji, Shuefei, and Ecu Bai could not stand anymore, loudly screaming like seeing ghosts in the daytime, and looked towards Shiryen with a face which could not be any weirder. This is really... The youths of the demonic sound clan mumbled, extremely frightened, and seemed to be violently shocked. Cough, Etianimo, looking a little ashamed, turned towards Yuro awkwardly and said, You all know, the good places in this abandoned land have all been conquered by the Wings race. The three of us have nothing to offer. It is not that we don't want to participate, but only. Yimeng and Kaba were also slightly embarrassed, constantly smiled miserably, showing their indigent gesture. I know. You are a little poor indeed, but all the good things here exactly do not belong to you. But Yimeng and the other two were silent, waiting for her idea. The soul knowledge of the demonic sound clan is much better than that of the Wings race. Yuro smiled and deliberately said, Regarding soul cultivation, the demonic sound clan has many favorite comprehensions. To the Wings race, they are useless, but to this little rascal, they are very useful. What I meant was for the three of you chieftains to open up the secret scripture sources for this little rascal to perceive. You have already known that the stage progress cannot lack these soul comprehensions, haven't you now? The three chieftains' faces changed and simultaneously said, This, how can it be? The favorite soul comprehension of demonic sound clan is our tribe's essence. How could we let a human being learn further about it? Yimeng was shocked for a while, suddenly stood up and said, If he knows the secrets of the demonic sound clan, and once he progresses, doesn't that mean that he will become the whole tribe's Shiger? Ecu Bai and Shuefei were also incomprehensive and frightened. They understood the advantage of the demonic sound clan, although the demonic sound clan was in an unfavorable position. Thanks to the soul accomplishment, they were a murderous attack on humankind. Their soul secrets could have easily removed the protesting ability of the human warriors OT the same level. On Shiryen's body, there was already the Heaven Flame, which was the nemesis of the demonic sound clan. Once he knew about the secrets of the demonic sound clan, it would have become very difficult for them if and when they had wanted to use those soul secrets to control and kill him. If one day Shiryen could have reached the heaven level stage, there would not be any top-class warriors of the demonic sound clan who could be able to defeat him. If that day actually came, then Shiryen could totally rely on his abilities to enslave the entire demonic sound clan. This was an extremely fearful thing. If he does not quickly progress, death will come even faster to demonic sound clan. It is not necessary to wait for him to reach the stage of which you are scared of. The demonic sound clan should have perished before that. Yuro coldly harumphed. Her eyes suddenly became furious. Stupid little rascal, when we are talking, you better shut up. Yaji was terrified, quickly silent, and bowed his head without daring to look at Yuro. What did you say? The matriarch of White Wings clan was cheerful again, looked at Tian Emo, and said, "You can't also not understand the situation. Okay, I will open my soul secret source for him." Tian Emo hesitated a little. He was the first one to agree. Although in their hearts, Yimeng and Kaba didn't want to do it, but thinking about the strange change of the Sound Beast Mountain made them felt chilled to the bones. They reluctantly agreed, followed Tian Emo in giving a difficult decision, and nodded their heads. The expression of Chao Zhilan, Gu Linglong, and Chu Yanqing were very shocked. These consecutive upheavals made them feel as lost as the mists around them. They did not know what it was that Shi Yan had done for them that made these two races voluntarily sacrificing their belongings, not only fulfilled in giving him whatever he had wanted, but also offered him their most valuable treasures. In these pagan tribes' eyes, Shi Yan was even closer to them than that of their biological fathers. On the contrary, they were also from the outside, but had become their prisoners. Although they had not been killed, they were to be offered to Shi Yan, and became tools for him to give vent, sexually, to do whatever it was that he pleased to his heart's content. Comparing between the two different conditions, Chao Zhilan felt so distressed that she had wanted to vomit out blood several times, and silently cursed that God was unfair. That's it, this thing can be easily solved. Yuro was deliberate. So it is, the three of you arrange a house for this little rascal to stay. I will choose to include the secret scriptures be a part of your scripture sources. Of course, I will not see your secret scriptures. You will be with me while I select them. Is it okay? Yimeng, Kaba, and Tian Emo did not want it at all, 1,000 times over, but they could not do anything else but to agree. In the middle of the place where the three of us are staying, there is a house there, not far from us. Let's arrange for him to stay there. Tian Emo was thoughtful for a while, then nodded, talking to ECU by. You bring Matriarch Yuro and Shi Yan to that house. Let's arrange for him first, then we will see to them later. Yes, Father. ECU by nodded her head with a confused face. Whatever she could imagine, she would have never expected that Shi Yan had not only not have been killed by Duolong, but was also escorted back by Yuro and Dishan. Furthermore, Dishan and Yuro, the patriarch and matriarch of the Wings race, their behavior towards Shi Yan was unusual. They did not even regret the treasures that they gave to Shi Yan. What was it all about? Siu Bai felt her head get heavier. She thought about the time when Shi Yan had timorously looked around in the forest, impossibly done anything, being controlled by her soul's secret skill. But now, looking at all the treats, she did not know what was the best to say instantly. Little girl, you lead the way. The matriarch of the White Wings clan coolly smiled, pointed to the three girls Chao Zhilan, Gu Linglong, and Chu Yanqing. A long-colored ribbon flew out of her sleeve and tied up the three female prisoners. Yuro, on one hand, pulled the ribbon as if she was walking her pets and brought these three female prisoners flying up to the sky. Her other hand held Shi Yan's arm. She was quick, but still deliberate, joking with Shi Yan in a low tone. Little rascal, it is not that I am helping you, I am helping our two races. If you don't put effort, don't blame Dishan and us for tearing off your skin. Ida, whatever, I have to thank you, haha. It was so unexpected of you that you could have earned such a big benefit. Haha, don't worry, I will be nice to you. Be nice to me? Little rascal, you really don't care about life or death. If you are not useful anymore now, I will instantly make you wish to die than to live. Don't be so serious. I know you treat me well, hi. Don't worry, because of you, I will try to break through soon, have stronger forces to control Heaven Flame, and help you break the shelters of Sound Beast Mountain. I hope you really have that kind of power, if not, no one can protect you. Not long after that, a mighty stone castle 50 meters high appeared in front of Shi Yan. ECU Bai was in front. After descending the castle, she waved towards Yuro. Yuro took Shi Yan and the three female prisoners along, and followed ECU Bai's signal to land on the highest floor of the castle. ECU Bai was standing in the middle of a big hall like the size of a basketball court, pointing to each of the tightly closed stone doors nearby, and introduced to Yuro and Shi Yan. There are 9 rooms here. There are places for the toilette. 4. It's all right. Yuro swung her arm, preventing Siyu Bai to continue, and threw the 3 female prisoners down, not caring about them falling down dizzily. You, go back. I will prepare a little, then I will go see your father to check on the submission of the soul secrets. Now go and tell your father in advance. Yes, Siyu Bai did not dare to say more, nodded, and confusingly looked at Shiryen, slightly sighed, then quickly left. Oh! Little rascal, you're good. That girl seems to pay special attention to you. Did you also have something to do with Tianmo's daughter already? Who? Shiryen pretended innocently. Hi, Yuro slight smiled and swayed her white jade-like hand. The colored ribbons that were wrapped around the 3 female prisoners sneaked back into her sleeve like a snake, flipped up her sleeve, and the matriarch of the White Wings clan indifferently said, I know your sea of consciousness temporarily is not unusual. It is just really special. The 5 anomalous souls were not restless, always possibly causing any upheavals. I leave these 3 female prisoners to you. If they are not enough, I will have a solution to find more. I will also go get the soul secret scriptures of the demonic sound clan for you. I will get you everything that you need. You will not lack of anything. I only hope that you can increase your stage as soon as possible. We can't wait for so long. Is it possible that the Sound Beast Mountain will have an upheaval? Shiryen probingly asked. Slightly nodding, Yuro said, I will not hide from you. Currently, the Sound Beast Mountain is very special indeed. It is highly possible for it to have a major change. Once that change occurs, our 2 races can perish. To be exact, once the Sound Beast Mountain has had an upheaval, this abandoned land will not exist. It will then mean that you will also hardly avoid the deaths that will exist as well. Shiryen, surprised, ceased a while, inhaled a deep breath, then continued, Finally, I know why Dishan and the others were so generous. I want you to know that your stage progress is related not only to the safety of the 2 races, but also of your safety. Therefore, because of your life, you should put more effort in doing it. Otherwise, even if we had wanted for you to be alive, we do not have the ability to do so. Yuro seriously said. I know. Shiryen nodded his head. Okay, I won't talk more. These 3 female prisoners cannot resist. While cultivating, if there is anything unusual, you can give vent to them at any time. You can even do it until they die, as long as you are okay with it, and if they do die, I can find other girls for you. You only need to break through quickly. Yuro looked straight to the 3 prisoners, Chao Jilan and the other 2. Her words were very cold-hearted. In her eyes, those 3 girls were merely tools. Faces of the 3 leader-to-be of the Endless Sea were gloomy after hearing of Yuro's words. Their charming bodies slightly trembled, but there was not any reactions. You ought to take care of yourself. Yuro flapped her wings, her body gently swayed, and slowly flew away. This place is very quiet, also very safe. You don't need to be worried at all. Just focus on your cultivation. Yuro's voice slowly sent out. Her figure had already been gone. In the huge hall, Shiryen mused, thinking of something. 5 meters away, the 3 girls Chao Jilan, Gu Linglong, and Chu Yanqing were anxious and insecure. Sitting on a stone surface, they could see the fear in each other's eyes. Time passed. Shiryen still did not talk. Chao Jilan's beautiful face was toneless, silently looking at Shiryen. After waiting for quite a long time, Shiryen still did not have any intentions in talking. She impatiently cleared her throat. Being awake while meditating, Shiryen frowned and coldly looked at the 3 female prisoners and said, Your destinies are too bad. I know that you just luckily stepped on some dog shit. Gu Linglong clenched her teeth and resentfully looked at him. I can't believe you are such a rotter, not only in cooperating with the pagan tribes, but also wanting to help those crazy pagan people get out of here. Do you know what you are doing? Making me angry is not a wise thing to do. Shiryen smiled. His figure zoomed over, landing in front of Gu Linglong, stretched his hand rubbing Gu Linglong's soft white chin with a lusty look, and said, You know, I can always disgrace you here. No one here can say a word. Gu Linglong's face slightly changed and suddenly threw a punch towards Shiryen, but forgot that her energy had been lost. When her small punch dashed out, she had felt very painful. Very unruly. I hope that when I play with you, you are also crazy like this. Shiyan coldly smiled, boldly squeezing Gu Linglong's soft breasts for a while. Small but very resilient, it indeed matches with your name Linglong. Gu Linglong could not stand the pain moving backwards. Tears flooded in her eyes, and stared at Shiyan resentfully. I will kill you, I will definitely kill you. Maybe your family can still have a chance, but you definitely don't. Shiyan's expression was cold-hearted. His figure quickly zoomed and appeared right behind Gu Linglong's back. His big hand slapped one of her round butt cheeks, and coolly said, "Butts are big, not bad. I will take good care of you." Enough. Bully a girl who cannot even tie up a chicken. What kind of man are you? Qian Qing's eyes were full of anger. She could not stand not shouting. Oh! Shiyan burst into laughing. At the beginning, nearly 100 guys had pursued us. Hasn't it been courageous? Is it Qian Qing? Goddess of the Heaven Lake Divine Land. Do you remember in Monroe Island how you treated me and Xine Yen? At that time, in your eyes, we were nothing, like an ant? That could be crushed to death. Qian Qing's eyes slightly changed. She obviously remembered what had happened in Monroe Island. At first, she had not known about the status of Shiyan and Xia Xine Yen. In order to get the secret of the Xian Binghan Yen, she had put Shiyan and Xia Xine Yen to death, finally letting Shiyan fall into an icy deep abyss. That made the Ying family very angry. The Heaven Lake Divine Land had a great loss. Because of the wrong anticipation which had led to the great loss of the Heaven Lake Divine Land, many of the elders of the Heaven Lake Divine Land had been very disappointed with her and had almost abolished her status of goddess, which made her resent Shiyan to the bone. This time, the Ying family had had a great change. She had been the first one who had volunteered to join the battle in Vault C, with the same reason as Gu Linglong, to take revenge on Shiyan. Just as life was unpredictable, many of the top-class warriors had entered the Abyss battlefield. Not only could they not kill Shiyan, but also had the same consequences as they were having right now. So, you cannot say? Shiyan coldly smiled. He then leaped and quickly appeared in front of Qian Qing. Her scream just resounded when Shiyan boldly stretched his arm to fondle her face several times, then pulled her thin mask like a mite jumping off of her face. Her eyebrows were high like a mountain. Her face was a delicate picture, no makeup, but extremely charming. This was indeed an exquisitely beautiful girl, not inferior to Chao Jilan. Chao Jilan and Gu Linglong also seemed to see Qian Qing's real face for the first time. The moment that her face was revealed, her graceful body slightly trembled and could not help but started screaming. Girls always tended to compare their appearances to each other no matter what. Gu Linglong and Chao Jilan silently compared themselves to her. Chao Jilan silently compared for a moment, slightly smiled, realized that in all aspects, Qian Qing was not inferior to her, and was quietly surprised. Gu Linglong seemed to be sad and fretful. Her expression was not good. She knew she was inferior one level to her, and could not be happy. Shiyan, astonished a little, stared at Qian Qing for a while, suddenly burst into laughter. It is quite obvious. Heaven Lake Divine Land could not select an ugly girl to be goddess. Haha, such a beautiful body. That's even better. When I play with you, it will be less boring. Qian Qing knew even if she resisted, it was useless. Under the lusty observance of Shiyan's eyes, she coldly looked at him with furious eyes and said, "Although the Ying's family's people are perverse and ambitious, they have no kind of hero who bullies feeble girls. Looks like you are an exception." That's right. Shiyan laughed loudly, flirtingly soothed Qian Qing's chin. "I think in the Endless Sea, there was no one who was able to see you, not mentioned to soothe you like this. I can't believe my destiny is very good here, in this damn place. My luckiness in love keeps coming. I can deliberately enjoy it." "Shiyan, can we discuss about this together?" Chao Jilan had been thoughtful for a while, suddenly spoke up. She was much calmer than Gu Linglong and Qian Qing. She was still composed, smiled, and said, "In the current situation, you are respected, but still, are not treated differently from any of us. Shigen harumphed coldly, momentarily left Chu Yanqing, and frigidly looked at the female prisoner boasting, smiled, and mocked her. Not differently? Why didn't I realize it? I know these pagan tribes, in order to win my heart, could they voluntarily devote the race's treasures to me? I know that these pagan people had brought you here for me to enjoy. And you, what do you have? You are just a tool for me to give vent. Besides that, I don't know what other values that you have. Shigen, you should practice a little charity, okay? Chu Yanqing coldly shouted, unbearably tired. If she still had some strength, she would have been the first one to tear off Shigen's mouth. Gu Linglong's charming body slightly shivered, also angrily clenched her teeth. But she had just suffered disadvantages, so she did not dare to provoke him again. Shigen was impudent and perverse. She had experienced it already. 2 sensitive places on her body had been violated. Gu Linglong's arrogance was torn off. She clearly understood her situation. In this damn place, when the body's strength was imprisoned, risking to provoke Shigen was just burning her fingers. Practice charity? Shigen's expression was weird. You also practice charity? You're just a courtesan. Please stop pretending to be a goddess. The beautiful face of Chu Yanqing suddenly turned white like paper. Her graceful body trembled, tightly clenched her teeth. She seemed to control in not risking her life with Shigen. Chao Zhilan miserably smiled. We are all nails in those pagan tribes' eyes. I know you, Shigen, to be a little different from us, so what? Currently, you are still useful. But when your advantages are no more, your outcome is perhaps even to be worse than ours. By that time, the way that the pagan tribes treat you will obviously be more brutal than the way they treat us. Shrugging his shoulders, he indifferently said, Have you finished? Chao Zhilan was astonished, nodded helplessly. Regardless how my future is, at least I do not get any harm right now, and also leisurely enjoy everything of the pagan tribes. You are one of them. Shigen coldly smiled. Chao Zhilan, I know what you want to say. You want you and me to conjoin to save you guys? Then we will deal with these pagan tribes, is it right? Chao Zhilan nodded. With you guys? Shigen didn't mind. Even though I saved you, you actually think you can help me? The demonic Sound clan asked one person to easily capture you all and confine your souls. How could you still fight with them? Kaba, Yimeng, although those people have weak bodies, their soul accomplishments have reached the god-possessed stage. They just need to activate their senses, and your souls will instantly explode. And you are so stupid to think that you can be of a benefit for me. The expressions of Gu Linglong and Chu Yanqing were like ashes. On the contrary, Chao Zhilan had no reaction, hesitated a little bit, then said, You said it right. We actually don't have a solution in resisting these pagan tribes. But if you can recover our strengths and give me one night to prepare, I can contact the Chao family. I just need to send out the information. I think our families will have a solution. Contact with the outside? Shigen, a little bit agitated. That's right. I just need to have enough time to prepare so that I can actually make contact with Chao family. Chao Zhilan assured and said, Once I send out the information here, with the intelligence of our top-class warriors in the Endless Sea, we can quickly know of these pagan tribes' origin and find of a way to deal with them. Oh, Shigen nodded, rubbed his chin, and coolly said, Your ways are not bad, but so sorry I don't accept it. Not only that, I will also watch you out carefully to prevent you from contacting with the outside. Upon his words, the beautiful faces of Gu Linglong and Chu Yanqing changed. Both resentfully looked at Shigen. Shigen, Chao Zhilan insisted. I am begging you to think about it. The demonic Sound clan have the gifted advantage to deal with us. Their particular souls can help them destroy us easily. There are also the 3 patriarchs of the Wings race. Each of them have wicked intentions with extraordinary power. Once they enter the Endless Sea, it is an accident for all the warriors of the Endless Sea. Because of it, there will be the deaths of many ordinary people. Even though you don't like us, you should see the big picture. The issues regarding your life and death does not matter to me. Shigen's expression was indifferent. I know all of you will not forgive the Ying family, and surely will not forgive me. I am not that great man, damn you, don't manipulate me. Finally, Gu Linglong could not stand it anymore. Do you still have a good sense or not? You know how much loss when these two races entering Endless Sea will cause? How many people will die because of your decisions? What? Shiyan coldly smiled. You cooperated with the people of the Fourth Devil Valley. Was it of good sense? Because of you, the Fourth Devil Valley and the Netherworld could massively invade the Endless Sea. Perhaps people in the Endless Sea now have already been in misery. Adding these two pagan tribes will be nothing, or these two pagan tribes can perhaps control the Fourth Devil Valley and Netherworld. What? Chao Zhilan, Gu Linglong, and Chu Yanqing simultaneously shouted with astonished faces and screamed. The Fourth Devil Valley and the Netherworld have possibly conjoined. Ghost Man and Devil Man have united. First, they killed all of the Ying family, destroyed the defenses where the Heaven Gate linked with the Devil Valley. Not long after that, Ghost Man and Devil Man entered the Endless Sea together. As of now, the Endless Sea perhaps belongs to Ghost Man and Devil Man already. Even if you send out information, it is fucking useless. Shiyan coolly smiled while speaking. The three girls bewildered. Their eyes were full of confusion. They felt cold and hopeless for the first time. Chieftain, Tribal Chief. Chapter 254, Unexpected Cake from Heaven. In the immense stone hall, Shiyan's face was serious. He composedly sat in the middle of the stone hall. His bright eyes stared at the jade bottle and at the two jade boxes in front of him without blinking. 7 antiquated dark yellow scripture books laid in a line behind the jade boxes. Yuro and Dishan kept silent, standing in front of Shiyan, one on his left, while the other one on his right. Yimeng, Kaba, and Etian Emo miserably glared at the 7 dark yellow scripture books. It seemed that they had wanted to say something but couldn't. They obviously regretted this decision and did not want to hand over these demonic Sound Clan's books. But they had no other choices. In a big chamber inside the stone hall, Chao Zhilan, Gu Linglong, and Chu Yanqing were feeling worried and insecure with a gloomy look on their faces while observing this scene happening in the stone hall. The white jade spirit fruit can be taken directly. After consuming it, meditate instantly and attentively absorb the soul-refining power of the spirit fruit. This method is very simple. You just need to carry the internal powers to the brain. The energy inside of the spirit fruit will unblock the nerves and veins in your brain, making your soul extremely sensitive, as well as helping you meditate well. If you are able to absorb all of the powers of a white jade spirit fruit into your brain, it will be very useful for your cultivation as well as the reinforcement of your mental state and soul purification. It makes the powers of your soul very sensitive and increases the coverage range and intensity of your mental state. Yuro's expression was serious. With her gentle voice, she slowly explained to Shiyan the consumption method and the efficacy of the white jade spirit fruit. The blackhead lotus is even simpler. A slice of the blackhead lotus can be compressed into plenty of juice. You just need to apply that juice all over your body and let your pores absorb the juice of the blackhead lotus, which will get into your body and gradually form a lotus tattoo on your chest. This lotus tattoo can enhance the speed of heaven and earth's spiritual energy, refining 5 times during the 5 years. As long as the black lotus tattoo does not disappear, once you cultivate, the heaven and earth spiritual energy will gather within 5 times faster, flowing in that black lotus tattoo. Through this black lotus tattoo, you can refine, transform, then slowly pour your profound chi in to help increase your cultivation speed. Dishan squinted while his black wings retracted. He clenched his lips, seemed to be a little heart-rending as well. Heaven Fountain Concentrated Water is the treasure of gray-white wings. The usage is also simple. If you're injured or your profound chi has had a great loss, you just need to drink 1 drop of the Heaven Fountain Concentrated Water. It will supplement your profound chi for you in a blink of an eye and also cure your wounds very fast. You temporarily do not need it now. Wait until you break the shelters. If your energy is consumed too much, you can use the Heaven Fountain Concentrated Water to recover it. It will increase your powers. Yuro smiled and continued. Dishan has put a lot of effort to convince Duolong to give you 1 bottle of the Heaven Fountain Concentrated Water. He nearly fought with Duo Long. Thus, do not disappoint us. Shiger sat meditatively like a stone. His expression was calm and serious. Don't worry. If I have these 3 things from you and yet could not break the shelters, you can do anything with me as you wish. Dishan nodded, then looked at Kaba, Yimeng, and Tianmo neglectfully asked, "How about you?" Kaba got startled and pointed at the scripture books on the ground, said miserably, "All of the scriptures are placed over there. You think he can understand them? Those are ancient books. If you don't give him any guidance, do you think that he can still understand them?" Arg, Kaba scratched his head, not knowing how to answer. But he then finally said, "Okay, I will show him." No, Yimeng and Tianmo spoke up simultaneously. All of the 7 scripture books did not belong to Kaba alone. 5 of them were preserved by Yimeng and Tianmo, which could not be spread out to others. If Kaba knew the contents of the 5 secretive scriptures, he possibly could have captured their secret spirits in his hand. Shiger revealed a wicked smile. Although he was under a tight watch of the top-class warriors of the 2 races, he still deliberately walked to the scripture books and picked one of them up. He glanced at it and said, "No need to bother you. I can understand these ancient scriptures." The 5 leaders' expressions slightly changed. Astonishment exposed on their faces. "Shiger, what did you say?" Yuro shook her head with doubt and said, "Don't bluster. This is not the time to boast. These scriptures were from our ancestors. It should be tens of thousands of years ago. How could you have known about them?" 7 manipulation gods. Shiger pointed at the scripture book in his hand, looking towards Kaba and asked, "Am I pronouncing the title correctly?" Kaba's eyes lit up. His face was very strange, but he still gently nodded his head. "That's correct. These are the 3 words, 7 manipulation gods. I did not expect that you would know it." By this time, the eyes of 5 leaders of the pagan tribes expressed an astonishment and suspicions at the same time. They did not know how he could have read these ancient scriptures. "All right. Everything has been brought here. I can now start my cultivation." Shiger leisurely stretched his hands, touching the treasures and ancient scripture books in front of him. The blood vein ring in his finger flared up several times. Those things then disappeared one by one into the ring. If there is nothing important, please don't disturb me." Shiger raised his head looking at the 5 leaders. Okay. You focus on your cultivation. I will be around to watch out. Call me if you need anything." The matriarch of White Wings clan revealed a beautiful smile. After thinking a while, her pretty eyes glanced at the 3 people of Chao Jilan who stayed in the distance, and said, "If those 3 girls are not enough, I will arrange more. You can set your mind to rest about this fact. Duolong has captured a human girl named Hiqing Man. I have bargained with Duolong. He will bring that girl here as well in a moment." It seemed that an idea just suddenly popped up in Dishan's mind. He said, "That girl is quite beautiful too. She will be also handed to you to stabilize your emotions. So, you don't need to worry about girls." Hiqing Man. Shiger's face slightly changed. His eyes kept moving before speaking. "The girl that I exactly need should be a virgin. Virgins have the most efficiency. If not, the results will be a lot less." "What?" Dishan startled for a while before talking to Yuro. "We perhaps have to put more pressure on Duolong. I think Duolong will also sacrifice that small thing for the bigger thing." Yuro looked at Shiger while revealing faint smile. After mumbling to herself, she reluctantly nodded her head and said, "So, we will go to discuss much more with Duolong." Sorry for having to bother you this time." Shiger's face was excited and seriously said, "Only human girls are suitable for me. I am not sure if the girls of your 2 races can be suitable or not. That's why I hope the girl whose name is Hiqing Man will be sent here unharmed. With 4 girls at hand, I think that I will not have any problems." "Damn you little rascal." Yuro shook her head, said helplessly, "All right, because of our 2 races, we will bring that girl here intact, as you wish." Korf. "That's good." Shiger's face remained unchanged. Then, he hurriedly said with an impatient expression, "Now, I need to cultivate. If there is nothing else to say, please. Let's go." Dishan leaped up, the pair of black wings on his back flapped gently. His figure then gradually faded and disappeared completely out of sight. Kaba, Yiming, and Tianmo stared at Shuryen before leaving without saying anything else. Yuro was the last one to leave. She waited until the four of them had totally disappeared before speaking to Shuryen. "Little rascal, you take care of this by your own. If you cannot help our two races break the shelters, no one can save you." "Thank you," Shuryen sincerely said while looking straight into Yuro's eyes. "No need to say thank you. I only think for the welfare of the two races." Yuro mused for a while. Her beautiful eyes blinked and her mouth revealed a secret smile. After speaking, she slowly turned around, flying away. Eventually, there was only Shuryen alone in the stone hall. He sat motionlessly, started to meditate. After the three people of Chao Jilan and the other two had watched him in silence for a while, they quietly walked out of the stone chamber, but still keep a safe distance with Shuryen. They looked at him with a confusing expression, as if they had wanted to say something but could not find any topics to talk about. "The three of you should be obedient. This place is not the outside world. You are something in the outside world, but you are nothing here." Shuryen turned his back around and said in a low tone, "Do not disturb me, be obedient over there. Female slaves should behave as female slaves." "Female slaves?" Gu Linglong's complexion suddenly changed. Her look was chilled to the bone. She fiercely stared at Shuryen's back. Her big breasts heaved nonstop. "What did you say?" Gu Linglong secretly clenched her teeth. She was like a small tigress showing her fangs and claws, being so angry as she could not jump over to Shuryen to tear him into pieces. "As I have said, the three of you are only slaves. I can play with you whenever I want." Shuryen turned his head around, coldly glancing at the three of them with a mocking face. "If you are not well behaved, I would not mind teaching you a bit about your manners." "You." Gu Linglong's and Chu Yanqing's charming faces turned pale instantly. They were so angry that their bodies trembled. They looked as if they were ready to risk their lives to kill Shuryen. Only Chao Jilan was not angry, but she felt a little dreary within her own heart. She released a long sigh, then walked towards Gu Linglong and Chu Yanqing to comfort them, and said helplessly, "We cannot do anything when facing with this emotionless rascal. Don't hurt yourselves." Gu Linglong and Chu Yanqing clenched their teeth but did not dare to storm in there and fight with him. They knew that it was not good to irritate Shuryen at this moment. In the past few days, whenever Shuryen had gotten irritated by them, all the sensitive places on their bodies had been violated by him. During the time when Shuryen had been waiting for the two pagan tribes to bring their treasures, he closed his eyes meditating. It was like he was reviewing all the secrets in his cultivation. The three girls could not do anything except insulting him with their words and curses, and the results were always woeful. It always ended up with their bodies being violated. Except Chao Jilan, who was the most obedient since the beginning, had not been violated as of yet. All the sensitive places on Gu Linglong and Chu Yanqing's bodies had been touched by Shuryen. The two girls were so embarrassed. However, whenever they thought about committing suicide, they got a terrible splitting headache and did not have any abilities to do it. Having been violated for many, many times, the two girls were gradually getting more obedient. They did not dare to irritate Shuryen too much. They immediately stopped if they saw that Shuryen had started to get angry. "I am almost done cultivating. Lower your voices. Do not disturb me." Shuryen stood up, indifferently glanced at the three frightened girls. After that, he entered a huge stone chamber on the right side of the stone hall. After closing the door, he closed his eyes and began meditating. Hello guys, I will be off tomorrow, so no chopped for tomorrow. See you all again on Wednesday. Thank you. Chapter 255, Soul Perception. Shuryen's eyes were closed tightly, his breathing was normal. Flows of negative energy started to spread out one by one on his body. In the secret chamber, Shuryen was meditating, gradually entering a marvelous realm, almost forgetting himself. From his appearance, his body did not have any special transformations yet. But if there was a person who had a mighty sea of consciousness here, he would have recognized that the fluctuating spirit inside of Shuryen's mind was extremely confusing and complicated. 5 flows of spiritual energies clustered inside his sea of consciousness. These flows were full of emotions of despair, fear, bloodshed, greed, and resentment, which were condensing little by little as if they had kept absorbing the negative feelings within his body. As many negative feelings gathered, the 5 devils in his sea of consciousness, which were created by the gathering of the 5 emotions types of despair, fear, bloodshed, greed, and resentment, all had a fierce manner as if they had wanted to get out of the sea of consciousness and intrude into Shiger's brain, plundering his spirit. When conducting the negative feelings, he did not dare to relax his mind. He still kept his spirit stabilizing to take control. This cultivation of the 5 devils in the sea of mind came from the blood vein ring. It was like a miraculous spell which had been customized for his body and combined with his mystery martial spirit perfectly. It was the same with breaking through the 3rd sky of the rampage. The cultivating method of the 5 devils in the sea of mind also needed the mystery martial spirit. This cultivation happened through the gathering of the negative feelings inside of his meridians. These negative feelings could have normally pushed him into a critical situation where he could not have had controlled the 5 devils. Even when they were still under the control of the sea of consciousness, they had already made Shiger scared out of his wits. Once the 5 devils could be free from the control of the sea of consciousness, they would then totally dominate Shiger's consciousness. Shiger had already known about this when he had cultivated the 5 devils in the sea of mind. Before finishing cultivating this marvelous martial technique, the devil's backfire could happen at any given time. This was actually the devil's experiment with Shiger. If he could not break the devil's mind, he would probably get the consequences for himself once the devils began to form. He clearly understood that cultivating the 5 devils in the sea of mind was much more dangerous than that of the breaking through the 3rd sky of the rampage. However, once he cultivated this successfully, he would obviously have tremendous intimidations like breaking through the 3rd sky of the rampage. Therefore, even though he knew that cultivating this martial technique was very dangerous, he hadn't hesitated before. Once he got the method of cultivating the 5 devils in the sea of mind down, he immediately began the cultivation. He liked the challenges of the martial techniques which were difficult to cultivate. All types of the negative feelings gathering in the sea of consciousness had turned into nutritious sources for the 5 devils. Shiger congregated the soul consciousness with the intention of penetrating the 5 devils' bodies in order to affect them and then build a harmonious relationship with them. However, after those 5 devils had received a lot of negative feelings, they gradually obtained consciousness. Because the devils had Shiger's spiritual seal, they could be also considered as having his intelligence. They seemed to know of his intentions. Once his consciousness came close to them, they promptly boycotted it. After many attempts, Shiger could only control a little bit of his mind's area. His mind would not be affected when the negative feelings filled his sea of consciousness. However, he had failed to penetrate the 5 devils with his spiritual consciousness to create a connection with them, which had actually helped him control them. Very long time later, Shiger gradually opened his eyes and contemplated for a while. After that, he took the 7 soul scripture books of the demonic sound clan in silence and started to read them one by one. The 7 ancient soul scripture books did not note the cultivating methods of the martial techniques in detail. Instead, they were about the research of all the miraculous soul transformations, mentioning the features and different methods of soul cultivations in a very detailed and clear way. Only after reading them for a short time did Shiger's eyes brighten up, his face revealed in excitement. These 7 ancient soul scripture books contained all kinds of profound perceptions about the soul's marvelousness. The soul apprehension of the demonic sound clan had indeed far surpassed the other tribes. It seemed that Yuro actually knew which ancient scriptures would be the most useful for him now. These 7 ancient scripture books, with no exception, all mentioned Upanishads that were related to the soul. It was as if Shiger had just gotten a treasure. He did not hurry to control the 5 devils in the sea of mind. Instead, he spent all of his time in reading the 7 ancient scripture books of the demonic sound clan. He did not know that the 7 ancient soul scripture books were the essence of the demonic sound clan's Upanishads of the soul. The demonic sound clan's soul secret skills had been totally based on these 7 ancient scripture books. Understanding them would allow him to master all kinds of soul secret skills of the demonic Sound Clan. He conducted his host's soul into deep inside of the spirit and the sea of consciousness, used the sea of consciousness to nourish the host's soul, gradually formed the God soul. Once the God soul was formed, it would then break the tie of the spirit and reach the level of terrific power. An ancient scripture book related to Upanishads of the host's soul attracted Shiryan's attention. He researched it so deeply that he even forgot about the time and the binding in the cultivation. He now only used his mind to perceive everything that was related to the host's soul. According to this ancient scripture, everyone had a host soul. The host soul was the core of spirit. An ordinary person could not sense the existence of a host soul, nor had no way to control it or take its forces. For warriors who cultivated martial arts, if they purified themselves and refined their blood to break through their minds, their spirits would slowly intensify. One day, they would finally be able to sense the host soul of the spirit's core. Once a warrior broke through the nirvana realm to form the sea of consciousness, if they could conduct the host soul into the sea of consciousness and the host soul would support each other and develop together. When the host soul entered the sea of consciousness, it was nourished by the sea of consciousness. Once the nirvana realm improved, the transformation would also occur. One day, if the warriors had entered the God realm, their host souls would then evolve to a higher level, transforming to the God soul in the sea of consciousness. Once the God soul was formed, it meant that the warriors officially became a supreme God realm master. The God soul and the sea of consciousness supporting one another could then develop unimaginable spiritual forces. Shiryan worked hard to understand and carefully remembered all the ancient scripture books. He gradually gained a special perception of the demonic Sound Clan's soul apprehension. If the host soul was conducted into the sea of consciousness and nourished by the sea of consciousness, could the host soul have then been able to control the 5 devils? In a moment, a bright idea popped up in Shiryan's mind. He suddenly felt that this thing could be done. After this thought appeared in his head, he could not restrain himself. He was impatient in finding the host soul that was hiding deep inside of his spirit, conducting the host soul into the sea of consciousness. White jade spirit fruit. Shiryan's expression completely changed. He suddenly revealed a smile. According to Yuro, this white jade spirit fruit could feed the spirit up, thus the host soul would be also able to benefit from this peculiar fruit. Once taking the white jade spirit fruit, the strange powers of the fruit would scatter and pour into the spirit, so that both the spirit and the host soul would receive more power. If it happened that way, after taking the white jade spirit fruit and contemplating to sense the white jade spirit fruit's power running inside, was it then easy to find the host soul? Shiryan's eyes brightened up. After slightly fondling the blood vein ring, a light flared up, and the jade box immediately appeared. As soon as the jade box was opened, a passionate fragrance flew out. The white jade spirit fruit inside of the box was fulgent. With the first glance, it looked like a marvelous crunch of jade with sparkling lights inside. It seemed to have some strange powers hidden inside of the white jade spirit fruit. Shiryan squinted, carefully taking a good look at the white jade spirit fruit. He noticed that there were numerous silk lines twisting together like the nerve system of the brain, which was extremely miraculous. Smelling the fragrance from the white jade spirit fruit had already agitated Shiryan's spirit. He felt as if his spirit had shot out from the mundaneness. It seemed to be purified by some exotic thing. Shiryan was bewildered for a moment. He did not dare to think too much, and hastily put the white jade spirit fruit into his mouth and swallowed it. Then, he quickly urged the profound chi to digest the white jade spirit fruit. Boom! Inside of his body, there appeared a flame suddenly which came from the heart within his chest. As soon as the white jade spirit fruit ran down to his stomach, the flame instantly enclosed the white jade spirit fruit. The fulgent white jade spirit fruit, like a chunk of jade inside of Shiryan's belly, suddenly burned up. Streams of power, one by one, rose up hovering around like a mist of smog. They gradually gathered running into Shiryan's brain. Shiryan immediately had the same strange feelings as he had absorbed the power of the white jade spirit fruit, only the feelings this time was stronger. As he had taken in the soul of the white jade spirit fruit, there were plenty of soul power scattering in all directions. As soon as the soul power poured into his brain, it abruptly flushed over his brain. However, the peculiar force of the white jade spirit fruit was quite special. This strange force seemed to have its own purpose. They gradually approached Shiger's brain, but only gathered into a special corner of his brain. His forehead. A dazzling, marvelous ivory-white light suddenly shot out from the middle of his eyebrows. Shiger's forehead vibrated tremendously, radiating a dazzling light which gradually covered his entire brain. His brain started to emit bright halos one by one. He now looked like a saint, very mysterious and anomalous. Found it. Shiger was extremely happy. His spirit was constantly taking in the peculiar force of the white jade spirit fruit, which then gathered in a mysterious area in the middle of his forehead. In that mysterious area, he could see another him and witnessed a glaring scene. In the mysterious area, another him was sitting cross-legged with tightly closed eyes. God light flared up in between of his eyebrows. It was exactly like himself. In that area with the 7 colored lights, an elf was sitting cross-legged. The corners of his mouth revealed a beam of excitement. There was a white god light hovering over his head. A dazzling light flared up in between the eyebrows. As Shiger's spirit came here, that elf seemed to feel something, opening his eyes all in sudden. Those eyes were like a bottomless lake which reflected the images of Shiger's living memories. All milestones in Shiger's life emerged in those eyes. As his spirit arrived here, it seemed to be attracted, abruptly went inside of those eyes, turned into a period of his soul memory. Bang! It was as if there had been an explosion inside of Shiger's head. His soul consciousness was horribly shaken. His sea of consciousness was also extremely insecure. However, the elf from that mysterious area gradually got out of that place, being conducted by the soul light into the sea of consciousness. Everything ceased suddenly. Chapter 256, Raving Waves. As soon as the host's soul entered the sea of consciousness, the 5 devils in the sea of consciousness calmed down suddenly, did not dare to be rebellious. The host's soul and the sea of consciousness were connected to each other. Each stream of the soul consciousness in the sea of consciousness stuck tightly to the host's soul. At this moment, the host's soul and Shiger's soul consciousness formed a marvelous connection. Soul consciousness then turned into beams of miraculous lights, which were not easy to be seen by ordinary eyes. They then abruptly went into Shiger's eyes. As his eyes opened, they seemed to receive lightning. Each stream of the lightning was thin and delicate, moving into his eyes. After walking out to the big stone hall from the stone chamber, Shiger looked out at a distance and suddenly realized that his vision range had been tens of times greater than that of before. Everything within the range of more than 10 miles became very clear in his eyes. He could even see the wrinkles on the faces of demonic Sound Clan's people with minute detail. His soul consciousness covered the entire area. Lives that were fluctuating in this area were signaled and transmitted to him. Even a worm under the ground could not avoid his soul consciousness's examination. At this time, Shiger had a wonderful feeling as if he had turned into a god. Small things nor tiny weak lives everywhere could not escape from his eyes and his soul consciousness. Everything seemed to be under his control. The host's soul entering the sea of consciousness had unexpectedly brought him such a marvelous feeling. These kinds of feelings made him crazily happy. His heart was even moved. In the sea of consciousness, the host's soul and the soul consciousness were bound to each other. The host's soul seemed to turn into another brain, while streams of the soul consciousness connecting with the host's soul seemed to turn into nerves, bringing him new perceptions. With the host's soul staying in the sea of consciousness, the 5 devils had also calmed down. After perceiving carefully, Shiger discovered that the soul consciousness connecting with the host's soul had also wrapped around the 5 devils. After entering the sea of consciousness, the host's soul continuously emitted fluctuating lives one by one, transmitted to the 5 devils through the soul consciousness. Under the effect of those fluctuating lives, the 5 devils suddenly became peaceful. They seemed to know that they were not able to dominate the host's soul, thus they stopped being rebellious. As he sent out his thoughts, the host's soul delivered his thoughts to the 5 devils. The 5 devils immediately immersed themselves into the sea of consciousness. The soul seal inside of the 5 devils which belonged to him seemed to have been effective. It had started to slowly tie up the 5 devils, which prevented them from emitting negative feelings. The lightning in Yan's eyes faded, his face regained the previous serious expressions. He stood in the middle of the stone hall thinking about something. After a long time, he sat down in the middle of the stone hall. Without worrying about being disturbed, he soothed the blood vein ring and took the black head lotus out. As he opened the jade box, big black halos suddenly scattered from the petals of the black head lotus. These petals were of an inky black color with black halos flaring up from the inside, which brought people a miraculous and anomalous feeling. Without hesitation, he stretched out his hand grabbing the petals, then put it right on his chest. The profound chi from his fingers concentrated and then radiated a beam of light into the petals. The shining black liquid abruptly flew out from the petals, absorbing into his body through the pores of his skin from his chest. A warm and wonderful feeling scattered all over his body. It seemed that there were thousands of worms that were gnawing on his chest. In a short moment, Yan felt itchy, painful, and uncomfortable. The liquid of the black head lotus diffused, quietly amended his flesh, which led to the transformations of every single molecular cell within his body. A black drawing which was as big as a fist gradually formed on his chest while he was still enjoying this marvelous feeling of perception. Yan was astonished and dazedly watched the transformations on his chest. He wondered if the liquid of the black head lotus was that miraculous or not. The originally faint black drawing gradually became clearer. Not long afterward, each of the petals appeared on his chest. Shining black petals had blossomed, little by little until a black lotus was formed. It looked highly exotic at the first glance. After the black lotus had been formed, a fresh surge of energy immediately ran out from the middle of the lotus bloom. After taking a deep breath, Yan sat straight, closing his eyes and meditating. Profound chi in his body slowly moved, carried on the circulation in his vessels. Right at the time that the refining process had just started, the surrounding heaven and earth's energy was unusually lively all of a sudden. The gathering speed was many times faster. The profound chi was massively pouring into the black lotus that was on his chest. It was miraculous indeed. Yan was very happy, quickly closed his eyes, putting all his efforts in gathering heaven and earth's energy without any distractions. He used his spirit energy to refine as much of the profound chi as possible and enhance the intensity of the profound chi within his body. Time had quickly passed. It had been 10 days in the blink of an eye. Squeak. The door of the next stone chamber was pushed open. 3 stealthy and delicate figures quietly walked out of the stone chamber, standing 10 meters away from Yan, watching him cultivating in the middle of the stone hall in silence. Lan Jie, Gu Linglong frowned, looking at Chao Zhilan implicatively with cold lights flaring up in her eyes. Chu Yanqing's exquisite face was icy cold, her eyes kept moving as if she had wanted to do something but still hesitated. Chao Zhilan knitted her eyebrows. While Gu Linglong and Chu Yanqing were staring at her, she shook her head implicating that they should not do anything rash. In the stone hall, Yan closed his eyes meditating. His body was gathering a big amount of heaven and earth's energy while he was topless. An anomalous black lotus emitted a black halo, which was like a fierce big mouth biting and swallowing heaven and earth's energy that was surrounding it before transferring them to Yan. Yan was motionless, completely oblivious of himself. It seemed as if he did not know that the 3 female prisoners were staring at him from not that far away. It was unknown of how much time had passed. Yan's body quietly projected faint silver lights which were originally very gloomy, but then became brighter due to more and more of heaven and earth's energy pouring in. The world's energy was dense like a cloud of smoke hovering beside Yan without dispersing. The silver lights from Yan's body gradually dispersed out as if it would have led to the mutation of heaven and earth's energy. The mutation had made heaven and earth's energy commence in being chaotic and continuously revolved around him, forming small streams of lights. Those lights were approaching closely to his body as if they had wanted to go through into his body. Lan Jie, this is. He is about to enter the second sky of the Earth realm. What? How come is it so fast? When he entered the chasm battlefield, he had only been at the disaster realm. The leaders of the two tribes had given him their treasures. He has absorbed the energy of these treasures, together with his outstanding innate abilities. Being able to break through this fast is within reason. Lam Jia. This is the most critical moment. Mei Mei thinks that he surely does not have any protection. If we can. No, we should not make a mess. Even if we do manage to kill him, what is next? This place is full of demonic Sound Clan's people. Before even being able to get out of here, the results might be even more tragic. But we may never know. One day, his animal-like characteristics might break out. He would possibly then violate us savagely. What will we do by that time? Oh, at least we will still survive. Being violated by the same kind is better than being violated by the pagans. Didn't you see Aji's intentions? If we had fallen into Aji's hands or the Wings race's hands, the outcome should have been much worse than now. Everyone contemplated for a while. After a short discussion, the three female prisoners were quiet again, stayed at the side watching Shiger without any actions. Far ahead, the stone castle, on the top of a very high arch, Yuro, the matriarch of White Wings clan was lying down on a bamboo swing leisurely, swaying her long thin legs. However, her mesmerizing eyes was looking towards the stone castle in the distance, quietly paying attention to any commotions inside of the stone castle. Besides Yuro, Dishan, the patriarch of Black Wings clan, was like a dominating stone statue with his cold yet attractive appearance. He stood motionlessly without saying a word. Behind Dishan's back, Qingman's expression was confused. She looked towards the stone castle in the distance with her wide-open eyes, and vaguely saw Shiger's figure in there. In the last half-month, even with the help of the white jade spirit fruit and the black head lotus, this little rascal's innate ability is not bad as he is able to enter the second sky from the first sky of the Earth realm. After a very long time, Dishan suddenly exclaimed, "It is regretful that he is humankind. If he were of our Wings races, we would have fostered and trained him." While speaking, Dishan swung his arm. A black cage appeared confining Qingman in the blink of an eye, which prevented her from listening or seeing anything. Dishan, I had promised that little rascal that after he finishes the job, we will spare his life. The swing of Yuro gradually stopped swaying. She frowned while looking at Dishan, then coldly said, "As the patriarch and matriarch of our tribes, we need to keep our words. What do you think?" "I will try my best to protect him." Dishan contemplated for a while before speaking. "But if demonic Sound Clan and Duolong unite to kill him, I will not risk my life for him." Yuro's expression slightly changed. She shouted, "They dare do it." Dishan smiled miserably and slowly nodded his head. "This little rascal is really outstanding. That's why demonic Sound Clan wants him dead." However, to help him improve faster, Yu has asked for the other three guys to give him their ancient scriptures. As he now can understand the Upanishads, if he does not die, his spirit accomplishment will be extremely tremendous. That should be a catastrophe for demonic Sound Clan. If I were a person of demonic Sound Clan, I would also have not let him live. I would have killed him at all costs. Yuro was bewildered, then slowly nodded after a while. She said with a complicated face, "So, my way has pushed him to the everlasting perdition. Anyway, he is just a little human rascal. No need to be that worried. We have sacrificed that much to break the shelters. Don't mind too much about his life or death," Dishan coldly said. Dishan, Yuro suddenly called out to him loudly. After hesitating for a while, she raised her head looking at the patriarch of Black Wings clan and said, "If that little rascal was the descendant of the three god kings, will you follow our ancestors' guidance and spare his life?" "What?" Dishan's face suddenly changed. The blood of the immortal god king is running in his body. This is destiny. Moreover, he came here with the heaven flame. Everything is needed as conditions in helping us get out of this abandoned place. Tell me, is it because that the ancestors have sworn of the breaking of the shelters which has been transmitted to the God King that we are now encountering this current situation? Yuro's eyes flashed with god lights. Her face was serious. looking straight at Dishan. Immortal God King? Dishan took a deep breath. He was obviously in shock. After a while, he said in a low tone, "Haven't you been mistaken? I have checked carefully. He is absolutely the descendant of the immortal God King." Yuro nodded her head. "I know that Duolong does not respect the ancestors' guidance. These things are meaningless to him. I want to hear it from you directly. If we follow the ancestors' guidance, we have to serve him as our master. This thing," Dishan smiled miserably and hesitated a while before continuing, "we will see. If this little rascal shows some potential which can make me admire him, I will reconsider. But if he cannot, I will not have any mercy. Ahem, Dishan has to serve him as a master. I would rather go against the ancestors' guidance than do it." Jia, Chinese way to call an older sister. Mei Mei, Chinese way to call a younger sister. Chapter 257, The Younger Generation Who Surpassed the Older. Shiryen glowered. A sparkling light appeared in his eyes. The shiny silver light around his body gradually retracted until it left no trace. "Congratulations." Chao Zilan moved forward one step with an honest face. "Although you have some help from the anomalous treasures, being able to break through the second sky of the Earth realm is really exceptional. If you go back to the Kiara Sea, you can definitely rank on the top 5 of the power rankings." The beautiful faces of Gu Linglong and Chu Yanqing slightly changed, showing their suspicions. "The top 5 of the power rankings?" Shiryen guffawed, shaking his head, and said, "I don't care about those rankings. I am not interested in it. Only top-level warriors with wicked intentions like you care about the power rankings." You look down on us?" Gu Linglong angrily said. "That's right." Shiryen did not refuse it and seriously nodded his head. "When I was still in the disaster realm without any help from the beasts, I could have already sustained one full power strike of yours. You are also of the power rankings, but still cannot defeat even one warrior at the disaster realm. So, you tell me, are the power rankings meaningful?" Gu Linglong got irritated while glaring at Shiryen. She said with anger, "You think everyone is a monster like you. Shiryen, you are not the same as an ordinary warrior. You could enhance your strength several times more in just a blink of an eye. Even the top-level warriors in the power rankings can never possess these kinds of powers. You shouldn't be compared to the common warriors." Chao Zilan smiled deliberately as if she and Shiryen were friends. Chao Zilan had still wanted to cool down the relationship with Shiryen. During this time, regardless of what she said or did, she should just simply follow and comply with Shiryen. Her purpose was simple. She hoped that Shiryen would have some sympathy for them and did not see them as his enemies. "I don't need you to remind me." Shiryen frowned, gradually stood up and stared at Gu Linglong and Chu Yanqing. He suddenly said, "If you still have wicked intentions, don't blame me for violating you before my cultivation have any troubles." "Ahem, you dared to have the intentions of killing me while I was cultivating. You are such stupid girls. Learn more from Chao Zilan. You should better understand your current situation." The expressions of Gu Linglong and Chu Yanqing slightly changed, but they did not dare to say anything anymore. They only felt strange how Shiryen had been able to have heard their conversations while he had been in the critical point of his breakthrough. They obviously did not know that after Shiryen's host's soul had entered the sea of consciousness, the sense powers of his god consciousness had reached an unimaginable level. Even in the bitter cultivating state, commotions around could not have escaped from his senses. At that time, he had not entered the stone chamber for his cultivation. Instead, he had chosen to cultivate in the middle of the stone hall in order to take precautions against unexpected incidents. Swoosh swoosh. The sound of wings flapping came up from a distance. Not long after that, Yuro and Dishan simultaneously landed. Yuro was holding He-Ching Man, who was cheerfully surprised. Bump. After throwing He-Ching Man on the floor, without glancing at Chao Zilan and the other 2 girls, Yuro turned her head around to look at Shiryen and said, "This girl's body is still pure. I brought her here specifically for you to do as you please with her." How much more time will it take?" "We don't have much time left. We should go to the Sound Beast Mountain soon. Give me some more time. I need to reinforce the realm." Shiryen was very happy. He nodded his head while looking at Man, then said, "In a maximum of 1 month, I am sure that I will be able to break through the shelters. Believe me, I will help you deal with the Sound Beast Mountain after 1 month." 1 month. After Yuro raised her head looking up to the sky, she looked at Dishan and asked, "Do we still have enough time?" "No worries." Dishan calmly nodded his head, looking at Shiryen. "I give you 1.5 months. Don't disappoint me. If you do, you will live to regret it." Upon his words, Dishan turned around and left. He disappeared without a trace in just a blink of an eye. Yuro said with a faint smile, in order to take that girl here, he had to fight with Duo Long, who had to suffer much harm himself. Finally, Duo Long could not say no to him. Although Dishan is cold-hearted, he will keep his words. "So, I should be grateful to you." Shiryen nodded, looking at Dishan's back shadow leaving and indifferently said, "Remember, 1.5 months. After that, I hope you can bring us a big surprise. Otherwise, we will make your soul fly and scatter in this place. You will never get out of here." Yuro released a long sigh in her heart, stretched her hand patting Man's shoulders, then spoke to Shiryen, "I leave her here for you. You know what to do." Yuro also left, following Dishan. Man, you. Chao Jilan was astonished, staring at Man for a while, then said, You have almost reached the third sigh of the Earth realm. What is this about?" Shiryen was also curious. Although the power in Man's body had been confined, inside of her delicate body, continuous sounds of the wind kept growling, the profound chi was intensifying, and her mind was stable. It seemed that there had been a big transformation that had happened. Entering this shitty place together, Chao Jilan and her companies had not had any improvements. As soon as they had just gotten in, they had been immediately captured. Because the leaders of the two pagan tribes had not regretted in giving him their precious treasures, Shiryen had been able to break through that fast. However, Man clearly hadn't had that privilege, but what she had gained was not bad. This made Chao Jilan a little bit surprised. "I did not expect that I would see you this time." A streak of misery appeared on Man's charming face. "I had thought that my soul would have flown and scattered in another short amount of time. In fact, in another 10 more days, I will be killed by Duo Long, who will absorb all of the powers inside of my body. If Dishan and Yuro did not come to take me, I will definitely have been unable to have survived." "What happened?" Shiryen knitted his eyebrows asking. "After entering this place, I fell into the Grey Wings clan's area. Because my body has the wind martial soul, Duo Long had confined me in a place where the wind energy was really intense. He's used my body as a container to store the wind energy, and then he would have absorbed that energy from me." Man's face was still miserable when she told them her story. "If Shiryen did not ask for me, I am sure that I would not be able to have escaped from Duo Long's brutal blow. I had known about his wicked intentions, but I didn't have enough strength in order to resist him." "You are thanking him?" Gu Linglong laughed coldly. "Currently, I am not sure you have escaped the brutal blow. Haven't you heard about his intentions of asking for you?" "I have heard that he needs girls to give vent to." Man's face suddenly pinkened. She looked at Shiryen without any fear and said, "Have you asked Dishan and Yuro to bring me here so that you could actually do it with me?" "Shiryen, why?" Cough, cock, cock. Shiryen dry coughed then said, "You have thought too much. You are not the same as the other 3 girls. I will not do anything to you." "That thing. I do not consider you my enemy, so I will not do anything to you." "Indeed." Chao Jilan slightly bursting into laughter. "I know Man will be fine." She originally had not considered the Yang family enemy. "She will not have bad luck like us." The expressions of Gu Linglong and Chu Yanqing was unsightly. "Shiryen, will you really treat them that way?" Man was little surprised. "Although these girls have chased you for a long time, will you feel guilty with Xinyan Jie if you do that?" Shiryan's face suddenly changed. He harumphed and said with a cold voice, "I know what I am doing." Man frowned but said no more. She let out a long sigh, shaking her head. "You find a room by yourself. It is very safe here. If I am still alive, nothing will happen to us." Shiryan's face was cold. He turned around, walking to the secret chamber without saying anything more to Qingman. If the 5 devils in his sea of consciousness hadn't had any abnormalities, killing Chao Zilan and the 2 others would have been the best way to take revenge. However, cultivating with the 5 devils was very dangerous. Even after the host's soul had entered the sea of consciousness, he knew that if he did not finish cultivating the 5 devils in the sea of mind, he might have encountered danger later. It was with a reluctance to keep those 3 girls with him to prevent unforeseen occurrences. Regarding the feature of the cultivation of the 5 devils in the sea of mind, it was not convenient for him to have explained it to Qingman. Therefore, even if Qingman had thought that he was a lustful man, he still had to accept it. In the secret chamber, Shiger sat cross-legged with his back straight up. He held his breath, calmed his mind, and once again entered the sea of consciousness. He observed every commotion of the sea of consciousness to understand the transformation speed as well as the consciousness-conveying process of the host's soul, sensed waves of the sea of consciousness one by one, perceived the marvelousness of the soul. His soul gradually approached the intangible stage. The host's soul in the sea of consciousness quietly emitted soul consciousness, which emerged with the God consciousness in the sea of consciousness. It borrowed the strength of the sea of consciousness to improve and nourish the host's soul, gradually enhanced the host's soul's power. His spirit immersed in the host's soul, constantly moved inside of the host's soul. It then finally reached an empty area of the soul consciousness. A black germ in that soul area released a cloud of black smoke. As soon as the black smoke flowed out, it immediately diffused, quietly spreading all over that soul area. Found it. Shiger's heart was shaken. He gathered the soul consciousness power in the sea of consciousness and the heat power inside of his body to transform them into the burning God consciousness lights. He then dashed them towards the black spore inside of the host's soul. Crackling. The black germ was burned by the scorching light of the soul consciousness. As being attacked, it released more black smoke, but the light of the soul consciousness promptly surrounded it and burned it, destroyed it little by little. Not long after that, the black spore inside the host's soul had been completely burned. In a giant gloomy hall, many of demonic Sound Clan's pagans were kneeling on the floor to listen to Tianmo lecturing about the soul's knowledge. Siu Bai and Feng were also in the hall, focusing on the lecture. On the chairman's seat above, Tianmo suddenly trembled tremendously. Faint black smoke emitted from his eyes. "Father, what happens to you?" Siu Bai hastily screamed out loud. Tianmo's face got serious. The black smoke from his eyes gradually dispersed. After a while, his eyes returned to normal, his body also stopped trembling. The younger generation who surpassed the older, Tianmo muttered with a low voice. A strange light lit up in his eyes with a complicating expression. Jia, Chinese way to call an older sister. Hello guys, hope you have been still enjoying this novel. And we are grateful to all of you for your comments, supports, suggestions. As you can see, we are trying our best to provide you with the best translation versions within our ability. We do know there are still a lot of things to improve, but believe us, we are working days and nights seriously. So, we need more of your rates, votes, encouragements, and donation to keep us moving, smiley face. Just a little from you, but it is big for us. Thanks again. We love you all. Big kisses and have a good day. Chapter 258, Hunting. Half of a month had passed as fast as a blink. Shiger had been staying in the secret chamber for half of a month without caring about eating or sleeping. He had been concentrating on studying the ancient soul scriptures of the demonic Sound Clan. After a half-month, Shiger quietly walked out of the secret chamber without noticing Chao Zilan and the others. He got out of the ancient castle alone. As he had just walked a few steps onto the streets of the ancient city, the matriarch of the White Wings clan, Yuro, suddenly appeared beside him, laughing out loud, then said, "Shiger, why did you suddenly want to leave?" "I just wanted to take a walk and check on the sound beasts outside of the city. By the way, I will practice some of the control techniques of the Heaven Flame. You can, of course, follow me," Shiger said with a smile. "I will go with you." In case you encounter any danger, I can help you out right away. You are now our two tribes' sole hope. The matter of your safety is very crucial to us. I don't want any bad things happening to you. Yuro spoke with a thoughtful and sincere voice. Not a problem. Shiryen quickly went out of the ancient city's gate together with Yuro. Kaba's group from the demonic Sound clan had been astonished, as well as puzzled when they were informed that Shiryen had left the city. However, knowing that Yuro had gone with him, they did not prevent him or say anything. Dishan was in the city, also the first one, who had been informed about Shiryen leaving the city, yet he had not stopped him. After going out of the city, Shiryen, accompanied by Yuro, went straight to the Sound Beast Mountain. The Sound Beasts on the Sound Beast Mountain had begun to rebel again after more than a month in silence. They massively flew out of the Sound Beast Mountain, plunging into all different directions on this abandoned land. As Shiryen activated his god consciousness, he quickly located the place where the Sound Beasts had gathered. Approximately, there were about 10 Sound Beasts besides a swamp, in which some of them were playing. They did not know the danger was coming close. Sound Beasts live in the Sound Beast Mountain year-round, absorbing the heaven and earth's yin-chi from the mountain to cultivate. Either some fish swimming in the water or some stones on the bottom of the swamp are useful for a few of the Sound Beasts' cultivation. Therefore, the Sound Beasts cannot live relying only on the Sound Beast Mountain's yin-chi. Yuro explained with a gentle voice. Shiryen nodded. His figure suddenly flashed up like lightning, zooming forward, towards the swamp. He slightly sent out his thoughts. Radiant flames suddenly emitted from his palms like a rainbow flying directly towards those beasts. The oppressively scorching heaven flame could have burned everything up. All the creatures were very sensitive to fire, let alone the heaven flame which was the Sound Beast's nemesis. As soon as glints of the blazing fire had soared to the sky, the Sound Beasts immediately got frightened, hastily heading back towards the Sound Beast Mountain. Shiryen's expression was cold and heartless. The corner of his mouth had curled up into a gloomy smirk. He slowly closed his eyes. The host's soul in the sea of consciousness had transformed greatly. Each of his thoughts gradually poured into the God consciousness. Then, flows of God consciousness, one by one, massively scattered, clinging to the heaven flame's lights. The heaven flame was hovering in the air as if it had its own life. Its orbit was very flexible, marvelous, and spectacularly miraculous. Not long after that, each beam of the lights condensed by the heaven flame weaved together to create a dazzling arc of light, rushing down from the sky and covering the entire herd of the Sound Beasts. Sputter, sputter, sputter. As soon as heaven flame had touched the Sound Beasts, their bodies were immediately incinerated, fuming colorful clouds of smoke. Their bodies also dissolved quickly. Shiryen was motionless, sending the God consciousness into each stream of light of the heaven flame as he constantly increased the heaven flame's keifaction. Since the host's soul had entered the sea of consciousness, his sensing abilities surprisingly had been enhanced several times, being more competent in controlling the heaven flame than before. With the soul consciousness dominating, every move of the heaven and earth had been deeply engraved in his mind, as he was able to see everything clearly now. The strength of the soul consciousness had helped him improve tremendously in his abilities to control the heave flame. Under the effects of the host's soul, his soul consciousness was like that of tentacles wrapping up all the Sound Beasts flexibly and precisely. Not long after that, the 10 Sound Beasts that were incinerated by the burning fire of the nemesis heaven flame. Their bodies had completely vaporized and dispersed. Colorful demons' crystal pearls, which were affected by Shiryen's strength, floated on the swamp, which looked like some unique stars. Shiryen finally opened his eyes, beamed a smile, then calmly stretched out his hand, grabbing the demon's crystal pearls. After he had stretched his hand out towards those floating demon crystal pearls, they then seemed to be pulled by some unknown forces. Those pearls quickly flew into his palms and disappeared into the blood vein ring on his finger. 12 demons' crystal pearls. It is not a bad harvest. But it is still not enough. After mumbling, he continued to emit his soul consciousness to cover the further range. Shiryen's eyes suddenly brightened a few minutes later. He used the electric shift to quickly leave. The matriarch of White Wings clan's eyes lit up with astonishment, staring at the direction that Shiger had just left. It seemed that she was deep in thought. With her profound cultivation base, she had been quietly watching Shiger's behaviors for several days. She had clearly understood Shiger's body and the improvement of his realm. As he had easily killed many of the sound beasts this time, she knew that regardless of his realm or the ability to control, Shiger had broken through the extremely higher levels. This time, it was not a waste for Shiger to project the Heaven Flame. He did not lose much of the Heaven Flame's energy as it zoomed over the air. At the point when the Heaven Flame had formed a fire net, the Heaven Flame's forces seemed to shape a miraculous formation, which had upgraded itself several times in just a flash. Such progress had helped Yuro understand that Shiger's concentration in cultivation was not useless. In only more than a month, Shiger's knowledge about the forces had obviously reached the new realm. Not bad, but it's not enough. I hope you can expose stronger powers soon. Otherwise, you still cannot convince that stubborn Deshawn, the matriarch of the White Wings clan mumbled, smiling as she was flapping her wings and quickly followed Shiger like she teleportation powers. Shiger had been wandering through the surroundings of the Sound Beast Mountain to search for sound beasts the entire day. Every time that he discovered a flock of the sound beasts, he immediately emitted the Heaven Flame, then used the Heaven Flame's force skillfully to tie up the sound beasts, gradually burning them into ashes. After that, he would take their demon's crystal pearls. At this moment, there were nearly 100 demon crystal pearls of different levels of sound beasts in his blood vein ring, among which the lowest was the 3rd level pearls and that the best were the 6th level pearls. The harvest was quite big. That should be enough. Raising his head looking at the immeasurably high sound beast mountain that pierced up into the sky, Shiger mumbled with a low voice before speaking to Yuro. Let's call it a day. Let's go back. Shiger, can you try to sense the sound beast mountain again to see if there are any changes? Yuro hesitated a little bit before asking. You have absorbed the heaven and earth chi of the sound beast mountain, so you should be very sensitive with heaven and earth chi. You should check to see if the heaven and earth's chi in the sound beast mountain is more intense or more diluted. Okay. Shiger did not know exactly what Yuro's plan was, but he still pleasantly satisfied her requirements. After sitting down and resting a little bit, he sent out his soul consciousness, urging the energy inside of the pearl at the meridian on his chest to combine with his soul consciousness and gradually diffuse towards the sound beast mountain. Not long after that, Shiger knitted his eyebrows, stood up and then mildly said, "Thunderbolts outside of the sound beast mountain seems to get weaker and weaker. However, the heaven and earth's chi in the sound beast mountain is getting more intense. I can feel that there is something strange happening in the sound beast mountain." Your senses are not wrong. Look at the sky above the sound beast mountain. Yuro pointed at the mountain peak, which pierced up straight through the clouds, and said with a somber face, "Did you find anything?" Shiger raised his head looking up to the sky. His eyes flashed up a stream of light. It seemed that there were lights converging consecutively in his eyes. The Sound Beast Mountain's peak was 10,000 jangs tall, reaching the sky where gray clouds were gathering. Thunderbolts intertwined as if they had wanted to cut the sky into pieces. Zooming through the sky with full of cuts, dazzling leaks of light were visible through those slits. The space over there, it seems, became more unstable. After watching for a while, Shiger said in a low tone, "You have been observing very carefully." Yuro nodded, replying with a forced smile. "The lightning seems to be able to tear the sky apart. It means that the time and space here is getting weaker. Perhaps only one attacking strike of that terrifying energy could destroy this space. Once this space crumbles, the whole space will turn into ashes just in a blink. No creatures will be lucky enough to be able to escape." Shiger's face changed dramatically. Yuro continued, "In recent days, changes in the Sound Beast Mountain have directly affected the space at the peak of the Sound Beast Mountain and weakened it. In another 2 months, if we do not have any solutions in getting out of this place, our 2 tribes' souls will vanish as soon as this space collapses." Yuro miserably smiled. "You and Deshawn both have cultivation base at the God Realm. Can't the both of you escape?" Shiger was astonished while asking. After releasing a long sigh helplessly, Yuro said, "You don't know that this abandoned land was actually used to restrain our two tribes. We have lived here for millions of years, while some of us had reached the true God realm. However, whenever someone had entered the true God realm, there appeared a horrendously destructive God light in the sky above the Sound Beast Mountain's peak. As a beam of God light struck down, the soul of the person who had reached the true God realm will have been totally dispersed." What? Yen was extremely frightened. Entering the true God realm means that having the forces to control the time and space. Once warriors at the true God realm reinforce their realm steadily, they will have a chance to get out of this space safely. The sky above the Sound Beast Mountain's peak has God power, which binds and controls us. It will not let any of our fellow pagans escape from it. Anyone entering the true God realm will have had their souls vanished if they had encountered that God power. Yuro's eyes were gloomy. She continued, "So many years have been passing as many of the top-class warriors of the two tribes had known that they would have immediately perished as soon as they've entered the true God realm. However, they've still put forth their efforts because they believed that if the warriors at the true God realm were able to endure the one strike of the godlight, that they could then rely on the forces of the true God realm to bring the two tribes out of this devilish place. Regretfully, those predecessors had all failed." Yen's face was confused. This was the first time he had felt pity for these two tribes. "Our ancestors have imparted their last instructions to us. One day, if a mutation happens in the Sound Beast Mountain like today, the chance of our two tribes in escaping has finally come. If we cannot catch this chance, the two tribes will truly vanish from the world's history." Yuro stared at Yen and spoke in a serious voice. "Yen, you are our chance. I honestly hope that you can help our two tribes get out of this land. I don't know what the others may think, but I can assure you that if you can complete this successfully, I will put in all of my efforts to protect you." Yen looked serious as he responded with a low voice, "I will try my best." Zhang, Chinese measurement. 1 zhang is equivalent of 3.33 meters. Chapter 259, Mercy. Giant Stone Ancient City. Yen and Yuro came back together. After that conversation, their relationship had remarkably been changed. This change was not easy to describe. However, Yen was certain that their relationship was no longer a mere exploitation. After returning into the ancient city, Yen walked directly towards the stone building where Tianmo stayed to find ECU Bai. He wanted to talk to her. Tianmo was instructing ECU Bai about something in the gloomy hall. After being informed about Yen's request, Tianmo was a little surprised. He hesitated for a while before speaking to ECU Bai. "You go out there and see what he wants. That little rascal is the hope of our two tribes. We will do our best to meet any of his requirements to facilitate his cultivation." "Yes, father." ECU Bai nodded. ECU Bai walked out of the hall in a very short time. She stood in front of Yen, asking him with an indifferent face, "What do you want?" Since Yen had asked the demonic Sound clan for Chaoji Lan's group of the 3 females to be the objects for his sexual satisfaction, he became a lustful jerk towards all of the clan. Even ECU Bai, who at first had had a feeling for him, did not want to see him anymore. Yen neither cared about how the others thought about him nor blamed ECU Bai for changing her attitude. "Here I have 93 demon crystal pearls." Yen calmly hauled a gray bag from the blood vein ring. He threw it to ECU Bai from a distance and said with a smile, "These beasts' levels are not bad. I know that they will be very useful for the demonic Sound clan's cultivation. They are extremely precious source of support for your advancements." ECU Bai was bewildered with an amazed expression. She asked, "Why do you give me this many of the Sound Beast's demon's crystal pearls?" "It is to ask for your help." "About what?" "These demon crystal pearls will be exchanged for the human warriors who still survive in Yaji's hands. They are useful to me." "Warriors?" ECU Bai's pretty face expressed a weird look. Her cold eyes looked at Yen's face attentively, then said, "Are you interested in males as well?" The delicate body of the matriarch of the Wild Wings clan, Yuro, slightly shivered. Her eyes raked Yen with an unbelievable look. She came here with Shiger without having known about his intentions. She hadn't expected that Shiger had killed so many of the sound beasts to harvest the demon's crystal pearls in exchange for the other human male warriors' lives. Thinking about the fact that Shiger had asked for Chao Zilan's group before, Yuro's false thoughts were inevitable. She lowered her voice with a strange face. Shiger, do you really have those preferences? Ouch! Shiger was dumbstruck for a while before he could understand what was happening. He quickly explained, women's thoughts are really complicated. I need those male warriors only for my cultivation, but it is not what you have imagined. When you had asked for those females, you had also said that it was for your cultivations. ECU Bai coldly said, I didn't expect that your tastes would have been so fickle. You don't mind neither cold or hot, right or wrong. I have actually underestimated you. Shiger, Yuro's eyes displayed a disgusting look. She proactively moved several meters away from Shiger. It seemed she had wanted to say something but kept silent at the end. Damn it, it is not as what you think. Shiger beamed a forced smile. I need those male warriors for a different purpose. Can you please have some pure thoughts? Why don't you go find Yuji by yourself? ECU Bai frowned, temporarily believing Shiger's explanations. She continued, with these demon crystal pearls, he will certainly be happy to have had done some business with you. That little rascal has a deep hatred for me. I am afraid he won't listen to any of my reasonings. Shiger revealed a faint smile and spoke to ECU Bai. That's why I have to bother you in delegating this task to you. After those words, he did not say anything further. He turned around, walking towards the stone building which temporarily belonged to him. ECU Bai was stunned. With her doubts, she held the bag of the demon's crystal pearls and went into the hall. After only taking a few steps, Mo suddenly appeared in front of her and asked, ECU Bai, what did that little rascal want to see you for? ECU Bai briefed him the story that had just happened. After listening, Mo contemplated as strange light sparked in his eyes. Not long after that, Mo's eyes were brightened. He mumbled softly, could it? What happened? ECU Bai surprisingly asked. Father, do you know what he wants? No, nothing. You should visit Yuji and do the exchange. I will find out what he wants later. Mao frowned. He felt a bit surprised, and somehow he seemed to have figured something out. Impossible. Could that little rascal actually have perceived the soul Upanishads of the demonic sound clan in just a short time? Does he actually know how to use the spirit seed? Outside the hall, Yuro was asking Shiger with a puzzled face, why do you need those warriors? Do you want to fight with them to improve your experience? It's not necessary. We only need you to break the shelter. We do not ask you to fight with the others. What do you want to do after all? Almost the same as what you've just said. Shiger revealed a forced smile without explaining anything furthermore. As he almost entered the building, he waved his hand to her and said, you should mind your own business. I need to think about some more things. Yuro's picturesque eyebrows slightly knitted. Although she was still full of suspicion, she didn't ask any further. After thinking for a while, she shifted and quickly landed on top of another distant building. Dishan was sitting motionlessly like a stone there. Dishan slowly opened his eyes when Yuro came, asking her with a light, surprising look, has that little rascal left the city? Yes, he's gone out of the city to kill several of the sound beasts. He's harvested nearly 100 demon crystal pearls and used them in exchange for some of the warriors who are now in Yaji's hands. Yuro added, I don't even know what he wants. His actions are strange, as if he has some ulterior plans. Regardless of what he wants to do, it's okay as long as he knows his mission. Dishan did not move. He contemplated for a while before continuing. When you had followed him to kill the sound beasts, had you seen that there was a significant improvement in his powers? Significantly. Yuro replied with a serious face. His perception of power and realm has been upgraded to another level just in a half of a month. I believe he will actually be able to break the shelter in a very short time. His potentials are indeed hard to imagine. If he has enough time to develop, he will definitely become an outstanding warrior of the humankind's new generation. Dishan was astonished and bewildered for a long moment. After that he said with a strange face, Yuro, is that little rascal actually as good as you have said? You go see for it yourself. I am certain that you, by that time, will have different thoughts about him. Perhaps he would become our two tribes' only hope in the near future. Yuro gently said. After being deep in thoughts for a while, she continued, I don't know why I always have a feeling that this little rascal is still hiding something. I don't think he is that plain and simple, maybe. Maybe what? Deshawn slightly raised his voice. Yuro softly replied, maybe inside of his body, besides the immortal blood, there is somewhat another miraculous thing. What? Deshawn suddenly stood up with an astounded face. What makes you say that? Yuro inhaled a deep breath before speaking again. I still vaguely feel that his immortal blood seems to be controlled by an unknown force. There seems that a flow of power which is even stronger than the immortal blood, yet is hidden extremely well within him. My feeling about it is sometimes on, sometimes off. That flow of power can somehow fool us. Deshawn got stunned with his eyes and mouth wide open. After a while, he mumbled with a low voice, is his coming here because of the god's will? If he really has transmitted strength from the immortal God King, I don't think we need to hesitate any longer. Let's see, we will have the answer soon. Yeah, I feel that his appearance in this place might be the beginning of our two tribes' rise to glory. In the middle of the spacious stone hall, Shiger had just come back. The four girls, Chao Jilan, Gu Linglong, Qi Yanqing, and He Qingman walked out from the next stone chamber. For pairs of mesmerizing eyes simultaneously stared at Shiger, which gave him a scary feeling of being loved too much. Shiger, where have you been? Gu Linglong immediately asked. How is it related to you? Shiger smiled coldly, sitting down in the middle of the stone hall with an indifferent gesture. Gu Linglong was angry because she didn't know how to trouble him. She could only have stood at the side, showing her rage by pouting. She did not dare to irritate him. Shiger, are you sure about what you are doing after all? He Qingman seemed to be concerned, asking him with a gloomy face. If you cannot handle the shelters, I don't think that anyone will be able to get out of here alive. I've only said that I would try my best. Shiger slowly closed his eyes. After that, regardless of whatever that those girls had asked, he was simply unconcerned. The four girls couldn't do anything but glare at him. Half of a day later, the two leaders Ecu Bai and Yifeng were leading many warriors of the demonic Sound clan who were under Yi Tianmo's command. They were pushing a huge cage, gradually moving forward. In the cage, there was Panja and the other 35 warriors from the Endless Sea. Panja bowed his head dolefully as his spirit was exhausted. He was only skin and bone. It seemed that his life recently had been extremely tragic. The other warriors also looked really skinny and sickly as if they had not eaten anything lately. Together, with their powers being confined, they were in a very bad condition. As soon as Panja saw Shiger, his dull eyes were lit up. However, in no time, he shook his head and released a long sigh. Shiger, I bring you these people as you wished. There are 35 survivors. It is lucky that you have asked for them soon. Otherwise, in a few days, I am afraid that there would have been no one left out of these 35 people. Ecu Bai looked towards the demonic Sound clan's warriors and nodded, signaling them to push the cage, in which Panja and the others were being confined into the stone hall. After that, she explained, Yi has been extremely angry recently. It seems that he had wanted to kill all of them at once for his cultivations. He's actually started doing that. If it had not been for the extreme value of those demon crystal pearls, which were certainly much higher than that of these warriors, they should have certainly died already. The eyes of Chao Jilan, Gu Linglong, and He Qingman suddenly lit up. Shiger, have you asked for them? Qi Yanqing was astounded for a moment. Then she gently spoke, you seem not to be a totally heartless jerk. I did not expect it for you to have been merciful as well. After hearing what Ecu Bai had said, those warriors inside the cage could not help but look at Shiger in gratitude. On the contrary, Shiger was still motionless. Even though his appearance was cold-hearted, he kept laughing in his mind. He thought to himself that if those guys knew the real reason why he had asked for them, he could not have imagined what they would have thought. Chapter 260. Didn't consider them humans. In the stone hall, all the imprisoned warriors from the Kiara Sea, who had luckily survived, had cheerful faces, looking towards Shi Yan with grateful eyes. After Gu Linglong and Chu Yanqing knew Shi Yan had saved those warriors from Yaji's hands, their thoughts about Shi Yan had also slightly changed. However, Shi Yan's eyes still remained emotionless. After telling ECU Bai to bring more food the next time, he turned around and talked to the warriors in the cage. I have saved your lives. You will just be a little bit less miserable in my hands, but the consequences will be the same. As soon as listening to what he'd said, the faces of those warriors dramatically changed. What do you want? Gu Linglong clenched her teeth quietly. All of them are in danger. Do you really want to kill them all? My cultivation requires some living people. They are just objects for me to cultivate. In my eyes, they are already all dead. Shi Yan coldly laughed and did not say anything further. He deliberately sat down, ignoring the others' vengeful eyes. His god consciousness slightly flicked. Shi Yan suddenly stared at one of the skinny warriors from the Gu family in the cage. Being scrutinized, that warrior's body trembled, suddenly grabbed his head, screaming painfully. What have you done to me? Shi Yan was motionless, continued enhancing his soul consciousness force. The soul consciousness had intruded that warrior's brain, moved inside to search for Yaji's soul formation technique. Shi Yan, what are you doing after all? He Qingman could not stand but shout. She continued, everyone boards the same boat, facing the pagan tribe's threats. We should unite to deal with them. Don't you remember the old resentments? Chu Yanqing and Gu Linglong both criticized him impetuously. However, it seemed that Shi Yan did not hear them. He focused on using his soul consciousness to encroach the warrior's brain, shifting around to search for his host's soul. While exploring his soul's features, Shi Yan was trying to find out where Yaji had originally put his restriction. During this period of time, thanks to the demonic sound clan's 7 secret scriptures, Shi Yan had a thorough understanding about the spiritual Upanishads. And, thanks to this understanding, he could have completely removed the spirit seed which Yi Tianmo had planted in his host's soul and totally escaped from Yi Tianmo's soul oppression. After having killed Duo Long, when Yi Tianmo had arrived at the ancient city, he had discreetly affected Shi Yan's soul. Yi Tianmo's soul accomplishment was extremely exceptional. He had silently planted a spirit seed in Shi Yan's host's soul without Shi Yan's awareness. Yi Tianmo had spared his life because he believed he could have had controlled Shi Yan at any given time through that spirit seed. In fact, Shi Yan had vaguely speculated that Yi Tianmo had done something to him, but he hadn't been sure. However, as he had recently received the 7 secret soul scriptures of the demonic sound clan, after studying day and night, he had gained profound understanding about the different kinds of the magical spiritual Upanishads of the demonic sound clan. Until then, he had realized he could have been killed by Yi Tianmo earlier. In order to prevent being the other puppets during their critical moments, he still kept studying the essence of the secret soul scriptures of the demonic sound clan. Eventually, after he had sent his host's soul to the Sea of Consciousness, relying completely on his new perception of the soul, he found the black spirit seed. He then used the force created by the unity of the soul consciousness and the fire force of the heaven flame to burn the spirit seed down. After escaping from the latent danger, which was caused by Yi Tianmo's spirit seed, Shi Yan suddenly felt that different magical souls of the demonic sound clan were really peculiar and terrifying. To prevent a similar incident from occurring, he needed to perceive the spiritual Upanishads more profoundly. That was why he had the intentions to study it deeper. If he wanted to have a big improvement on the spiritual Upanishads, relying only on his own will was obviously not enough. Anyway, his knowledge about the spiritual Upanishads were still vague. There were many things that he did not understand thoroughly, and, if he had used himself in conducting the experiments, he would perhaps negligently have vanished his own soul. Using other souls to experiment could help avoid some unforeseen occurrences of his own soul. That was why he had asked for those warriors and Panja to study further with. As his soul consciousness got into that warrior's head, Shi Yan's mind slightly moved. His soul consciousness was now divided into 10 of millions of flows, quickly moving inside of that guy's head to understand his brain's complicated structure first. After an unknown amount of time, when Shiryan's soul consciousness in that guy's head gradually got weakened, as soon as his soul consciousness had almost contacted with that warrior's host's soul, the warrior's host's soul suddenly emitted a spiral wave and exploded. Boom! Shiryan could clearly sense the violent explosive sound coming out from that warrior. As soon as the explosive sound echoed, Shiryan hurriedly retreated his soul consciousness in fear. Guku! Gu Linglong let out an ear-piercing sound. As Shiryan stared at that gaunt warrior with his eye wide open, he could see that guy's eyes and nose were bleeding. His face was heartrending as his pupils were enlarged. He was dead. Shiryan, you have done another good deed. Gu Linglong was like a small tigress showing her fangs and claws, jumping towards Shiryan. You have to pay soul for soul. The bastard like you is worthy of having thousands of slashes. You will not have a decent death. Get the hell out of my way. Shiryan angrily raised his arm, releasing one strike. Gu Linglong's petite body was pushed back by an invisible force. She kept rolling on the ground until hitting the corner of the next stone hall's wall. As she stood up, her face was full of dust with a blousy appearance. She totally had lost her usual noble dignity. Shiryan, what you've done is very cruel. Chao Jilan let out a long sigh, shook her head and said, you could have just killed them directly. Why did you need to torture them, use them as objects for your cultivation? This is really... I didn't kill him. Shiryan laughed coldly. There was a spirit seed which had been planted by the demonic sound clan in his soul. My soul consciousness had just entered his head, but I hadn't approached his soul yet, and the formation technique suddenly exploded, crushing his soul. The one who has killed him is the demonic sound clan who had activated that formation technique. Chao Jilan got bewildered, hesitated for a while before saying, if you didn't send your soul consciousness into his head, the formation technique would not have been scattered, and he would not have died. The consequences are the same. If the formation technique exists and the opponent wants him to die, he won't be able to resist. I've used him as an object for my studies of the spiritual Upanishads. I would perhaps find a way to break the formation technique. Although some people probably have to die, I believe as long as I have a thorough understanding, I will be able to break those formation techniques. Shiryan harumphed and then continued, they will die sooner or later anyway. Dying sooner probably still has a little value, which is actually a lucky thing. I didn't originally see them as human beings. If you can also think the same way, you will not be so brokenhearted anymore. After he had finished his talk, Shiryan no longer cared about Chao Jilan. Instead, he continued his studies. For 2 days, the 4 warriors of the Gu family had become Shiryan's objects for his soul cultivation. Their souls had exploded, till they died one by one. Gu Linglong still wanted to risk her life to strike against Shiryan, but Chao Jilan had advised her not to do so. Gu Linglong's pretty face was very fierce. She kept screaming and cursing Shiryan not to have a decent death. She threatened that once she went back to the Kiara Sea, she would have used all sorts of different brutal ways to torture him. Every time that Shiryan had been irritated because of her words, he angrily tore off a piece of her clothes to teach her a lesson. Until her snow-white skin was gradually exposed, including her big breasts, Gu Linglong was finally frightened enough, but still, she was very angry. She temporarily kept silent, stayed at the side looking at Shiryan with the intense resentment. Her appearance looked as if she had wanted to devour him whole. Shiryan still continued his study on understanding the souls. His soul consciousness once again intruded the brain of another one of the Gu family's warriors. This time, he divided his soul consciousness into 3 flows, in which he also added his spirit seal. The 3 flows of the soul consciousness had formed a small soul formation of the hidden god soul, secretly running towards the warrior's host soul within his brain. The hidden god soul was a special spirit skill of the demonic sound clan, which used the condensed flows of the god consciousness one by one to create a miraculous spirit formation. This spirit formation could have then hid all spiritual energies, which the host's soul could not have found out about it. This was a new method that had taken Shurian half of a day to have figured out. Taking advantage of the demonic sound clan's special spirit skill, the three flows of Shurian's soul consciousness quietly approached that warrior soul. Nothing abnormal happened. Previously, whenever they'd come here, the formation technique in those warrior souls had promptly scattered, exploding their souls. However, this time, the soul force in the formation technique obviously did not discover Shurian's soul consciousness. It still hid deeply inside of that warrior soul without any commotion. Shurian continued using his spirit to control the three flows of the soul consciousness to get into that warrior soul. A triangle-shaped soul formation technique, which had hid itself deeply inside, gradually emerged. This soul formation technique had a triangle shape. Its surface was full of dense soul strings like thin silken fibers. Those tangled soul strings then formed a miraculous soul formation, consecutively emitting soul fluctuations, which observed the every move of this warrior soul. Shurian did not feel strange with the demonic sound clan's spirit skills. He knew that a person who had placed this soul formation technique could also have easily activated it to either make one's soul explode or control one's soul in a short amount of time. Three flows of the soul consciousness suddenly spread in and violently wrapped that formation technique. The burning fire inside these flows also erupted abruptly. Sputter. The soul formation technique, which had been placed by Yaji under Shurian's forces, was completely burned down in no time. Not long after that, Shurian suddenly stared at the warriors of the Gu family in the cage and stolidly said, "The formation techniques in your souls have been dissolved." Everyone in the stone hall was very surprised at first. Their faces were lit up with extreme joy. Indeed, only using souls of living people can improve one's knowledge. Shurian mumbled in a low voice. While the other people were crazily happy, he indifferently said, "Actually, I have dissolved the warrior's formation technique in order to replace it with my own formation technique in his head. Right now, I control his life." "You bastard." Gu Linglong scolded irritatingly. Shurian's expression remained unchanged, cold-heartedly said, "Now, I have to lift all of your formation techniques, and then I will replace them with my own soul formation techniques. After all of these are done, I can be assured to freely use them as objects for my soul study. If they are not dead after being used for my soul cultivation, I will perhaps spare those lucky people's lives." Upon his words, the warrior's eyes, which had just sparkled with full of hope, now expressed disappointment. "You are the devil." Gu Linglong, Chu Yanqing, and even Chao Zhilan could not stand but angrily shouted loudly. Their delicate bodies were trembling with extreme resentment. Let's take a break tomorrow. We will come back for more chapters on Wednesday. Thanks all. Chapter 261, Ruthless. What has that little rascal done recently? On top of a sky-high ancient fortress, Duolong of the Grey Wings clan coldly asked with an unhappy countenance. Yuro and Dishan were also at the same place with Duolong. Both of them frowned, watching from above. They were sweeping their eyes at Duolong from the distance, but did not reply to him. Not long after that, Yimeng, Kaba, and Etian Mo, the three leaders of the demonic sound clan, also flew into that place. After descending, they all showed unusual faces. Three of them had an exceptional cultivating level. Their soul power was ecstatic and miraculous. They could have sensed any of the commotions on the Sound Beast Mountain, even though they staying inside of the giant stone ancient city. At this moment, 6 of the top-class pagan warriors were standing on top of the ancient fortress, looking towards the Sound Beast Mountain from a distance, shuddering terrifyingly. The sky over there looked like it was being torn into pieces. Each of the cracked rifts could have devoured and swallowed all of the creatures. All kinds of dazzling light interlaced at one point. Deep inside the sky, thunder and lightning were just raging on as the surge fluctuated. Tremendous enough to have completely destroyed heaven and earth. It was getting more and more chaotic. Those 6 pagans had a feeling that a powerful explosion could have happened any time at the Sound Beast Mountain's peak. Once it had exploded, this whole land would have instantly turned into a void. All the creatures living on this land would have been totally wiped out. The six of them understood that a major incident was coming close. Time was now rushed. Even the sound beasts inside of the Sound Beast Mountain seemed to have sensed the changes and started to get into a flurry. They began to act disorderly, trying to get out and survive. We are running out of time. Tian Mo's eyes were very serious. In another month, if we still cannot find the way out, I don't think any of us will be able to escape from this catastrophe alive. All six of them looked extremely grave. Dishan, Nero, in order to help that little rascal improve faster, I've given you guys the Heaven Fountain concentrated water, as well as the female human beings. How's it going after all? Duolong asked with a cold-blooded voice. Because of our two tribes, I've restrained my anger and agreed to let everything go. But if that little rascal isn't worth it, before I die, I will definitely peel his tendons, skin him alive, then let him suffer all kinds of tortures. Dishan harumphed but did not say anything. He still has half of a month. After that, we will all take him to the Sound Beast Mountain. The matriarch of the White Wings clan seemed to be the calmest. Don't worry, Shiryen has entered the second sky of the Earth realm. His knowledge and ability to control the heaven flame have also reached a higher level. After half a month, his cultivation would be perhaps stable. At that time, his abilities to use the powers would have been extremely skillful and profound. That is the right time for us to enter the Sound Beast Mountain. Tian Mo looked towards Shiryen, quietly activating his soul sense. Tian Mo's gray-white eyes suddenly flashed up a surprising light after a short moment. It seemed he'd just found out about something. In terms of soul aspect, Dishan, Duolong, and Yuro, the three leaders of the Wings race, could not have been compared to the demonic Sound clan. Thus, they did not recognize Tian Mo's sneaky act. However, when Tian Mo retreated his soul sense, the other two leaders of the demonic Sound clan, Yimeng and Kaba, had noticed something. Did you discover something? Kaba felt that something was a bit odd, looking at Tian Mo while asking. Tian Mo slowly nodded as his countenance returned to normal. He said, that little rascal has not been idle during this time. I have to say that this guy is really extraordinary. After just scanning the ancient scriptures of the demonic Sound clan, he could have had already broken through all the formation technique that Yaji had placed in those human warrior souls. Then, he planted his own spirit seeds inside of their souls. That genius can really shock me. What? Yimeng's face changed. He screamed out in shock. Without our instructions, only relying on those ancient scriptures, how could he have known of the ways in using the spirit seed? How could he have disarmed the spirit formation technique of my son? How could he? Dishan's eyes brightened up. You can check it yourselves. Tian Mo coldly smiled. Yimeng and Kaba were astonished for a while. They did not hesitate to send out their soul senses to check if Tian Mo was right or not. After 10 minutes, Yimeng and Kaba both showed a surprised face, chuckling while nodding towards Dishan and Yuro. What does it mean? Duolong asked with a puzzled face. Let's say he could understand the essence of the spiritual Upanishads of the demonic Sound clan. What can it prove? How useful can it be towards breaking the shelters if he can explain the spiritual Upanishads? If it doesn't help in breaking the shelters, his understandings will be useless, just a waste of time. Tian Mo glanced at Duolong with a contemptuous look and frigidly said, when a soul perception has reached a new level, its ability to control the surrounding circumstances are much more thorough, power handling will be more skillful, and the mental state will also develop. The demonic Sound clan and the Wings race are not similar. Progress in terms of the soul will bring us many good things that we can hardly imagine of. He is not lazy. The stronger that his soul is, the easier it can be for him to break the shelters. Yuro said with a faint smile, there are still 2 weeks to go. I long for his performance after that amount of time. I believe that this guy can help us get out of this damn place, returning to the Grace mainland. Why do you trust him that much? Duolong was very surprised. He had originally looked down on Shiryen. Yet, he also thought that if he had been at the Earth realm and possessed the Heaven flame, it would not have been easy for him to have mastered it. I think that God will not let our two tribes perish. Yuro's eyebrows knitted tightly while saying, no matter what, we have to trust him. If we don't trust him, it means that we don't believe that we could survive. During the time when the Sound Beast Mountain had had a major change, a little rascal who can use the heaven flame suddenly appears out of nowhere. I have a feeling that our destiny had been settled when he showed up here. Perhaps our ancestors have heard our pleas. Destiny has been settled, Tian Mo mumbled again with a low voice. His eyes became eccentric. After a while, his face suddenly changed. He said, "This little rascal's existence is the result of our ancestors invoking the God King." Kaba, Yaji, and Duolong trembled as their faces had changed dramatically. Only Yuro and Dishan still remained calm. Yuro even chuckled and gently said, "Who knows, if he is really an autograph of a God King, I think that I will follow the ancestors' guidance. Our ancestors used to say that if a descendant of the God Kings could bring us out of this devilish place, we would have to serve him as our master." As soon as Kaba, Yimeng, and Duolong heard what Yuro had just said, they were all dazed with confused faces while their eyes kept moving. No one said anything. See. Inside the cage, Panja of the Pinglai Divine Land suddenly gushed out a mouthful of blood, staring at Shiyen resentfully. In the stone room, Shiyen was neglectfully motionless and slowly closed his eyes. There seemed to be a vague moving nimbus on his body. Heaven and Earth's spirit aura was attracted by the strange tattoo on his chest, quickly came and gathered. The spirit aura was constantly absorbed through this black tattoo, then turned into a purified force rolling into his body. When condensing and refining the qi, the meridians in his entire body quietly transported and purified the qi which he had just absorbed from some freshly dead warriors. He then turned it into a mysterious force and poured it right into the middle of his abdomen. Half of a day later, Shiyen slowly opened his eyes, indifferently shifted his look towards Panja, and calmly said, "You're lucky that you're not dead yet. Ease your mind. If you can survive more than 2 weeks, I will spare your life." Currently, there were only 12 warriors of the Kiara Sea left. The rest had been dead as Shiyen had carelessly experimented them for his studies on the spiritual Upanishads. The demonic Sound clan had different kinds of magical spiritual Upanishads, which was extremely mysterious and marvelous. When he practically experimented with it, mistakes were hard to have been avoided. When he made mistakes, he had to pay a big price, which was someone's life. These warriors, who had been exchanged from Yaji, became the best specimens for his cultivation. By risking their lives, Shiyen had progressed incredibly in understanding the spiritual soul as well as the different kinds of Upanishads of the demonic Sound clan. For those who were his experimental objects, once their souls had been destroyed, refined qi in their body would spread out and went into Shiyen's body, turning into a mysterious and purified force inside of his body. With the great progress on the spiritual soul, profound qi in his body also had been enhanced steadily. He felt that he would soon have upgraded to a new level, entering the third sky of the Earth realm. "Shiyen, you will not have a decent death." Panja clenched his teeth and angrily said, "You'd better kill me soon. Otherwise, I will definitely make you pay a big price for this." Panja had originally controlled his emotions very well. However, during the time his soul had been tortured, he totally collapsed. When Shiyen's soul consciousness actively stirred in Panja's head, Panja could clearly have felt something as Shiyen's skill was still immature. Every time that Shiyen had activated his soul consciousness, Panja had a feeling of hundreds of little worms were gnawing his brain. This feeling had made a steadfast person like Panja fearfully scream out. Panja was just better off dead, as he was treated badly by Shiyen time after time. An image of a hero in the past had no remnants left. Resentment was burning violently inside of Panja's heart. He was angry that he could not have torn Shiyen's body apart. If you can survive, I will be waiting for your revenge in the future." Shiyen revealed a faint smile. He thought, "Even if you can survive, I will place many formation techniques in your soul. In the future, if you return to the Kiara Sea, you will be my eye in the Pinglai Divine Land and also possibly help me collect the latest information there." Ignoring Panja's screams, Shiyen deliberately stood up, frowned, and looked at the stone door closing tightly nearby with suspicion. During this time, Either because of their inability to resist Shi Yan or having other purposes, Chao Zhilan, Gu Linglong, and Qi Yanqing persistently stayed inside of the stone chamber. After contemplating a little bit, when Shi Yan was about to go find He Qing Man to ask, he suddenly noticed that the blood vein ring had just flared up a stream of light. Oh! After activating his mind, Shi Yan immersed himself into the blood vein ring. He immediately realized that the earth flame was slowly condensing and refining the heaven flame. Its living form was getting more and more flawless as it seemed to have a little of chi energy similar to the one of the ice-cold flame. Has the evolution already been completed? Shi Yan was astounded. He instantly sent out his soul consciousness. Already done. I feel like I have a new life. I am really, really different. The ice-cold flame sent back its consciousness. Chapter 262, Intimidating Heavenly Prestigious Power. Half of a month later, 3 headmen of the Wings race including Di Shan, Duo Long, and Yu Rou, together with the 3 leaders of the demonic Sound clan, entered the stone hall where Shi Yan was temporarily staying. Shi Yan was as calm as water, sitting motionlessly inside of the stone hall. Panja and the other 6 warriors of the Kiara Sea were standing in front of him with gloomy faces, disappointing eyes, and a dopey look. The 4 girls of Chao Zhilan's group were hiding in the stone chamber for a long time without stepping out once. Shi Yan opened his eyes, welcomed them with a cold face and a frigid smile. There you are. Yu Rou nodded and smiled. How is it going? It's time. I think we should depart at once. How about you? Are you ready? Di Shan squinted as his eyes scanned Shi Yan's body for a while with a complimentation. After 2 weeks, Shi Yan was only 1 step away from the 3rd sky of the Earth realm. His mind was stable, refined forces in his body were huge and powerful. Mature composure and confidence radiated from his attitude. It seemed that he was not bothered, even though he was undergoing a dangerous situation. From what Di Shan had observed, Shi Yan, for sure, was very special. Not only did he have the immortal blood, but his body was also unimaginably sturdy. Together with Shi Yan's heartlessness and cold-blooded behaviors, Di Shan believed that Shi Yan was the sort of a man who would have definitely achieved greatness in the future. During this time, he had been quietly watching Shi Yan. He had witnessed the warriors from the Kiara Sea become specimens for Shi Yan to experiment his soul studies. Shi Yan's countenance had remained unchanged when his specimens' souls had been exploded to death, one by one. Shi Yan's cruel deeds were actually a good trait in Di Shan's eyes. Everything is ready. Shi Yan slowly stood up, raised his head looking up towards the sky and said, "The sky and earth on the Sound Beast Mountain are changing constantly. We should hurry." After pausing for a little bit, he continued, "Are you ready?" "We," Yimeng surprisingly said. "What should we be ready for? Isn't it only you who will go there?" Kaba's and Duolong's expressions were also suspicious. Duolong, Yu Rou, and Yi Tian-Imo slightly knitted their eyebrow as they seemed to have figured out what Shi Yan had meant. "Once the shelters at the Sound Beast Mountain are destroyed, the 6 of you will immediately go in there." Shi Yan contemplated for a moment before speaking seriously. "Certainly, there are some anomalies inside of the Sound Beast Mountain. Maybe the gate leading to the outside world is in there. Once this gate appears, perhaps this land will also have earth-shaking transformations and quickly collapse. It is easy for you to leave, but how about your people? Won't you need to bring any of your properties that you have been saving during the past years?" Kaba's and Yimeng's complexion had suddenly changed. "You should prepare. Later, don't blame me for not telling you." Shi Yan neglectfully said, "You'd better bring your people to the foot of the Sound Beast Mountain. When things tragically change, you all should leave at once. If this space collapses and you still haven't left yet, you've already known what the consequences will be off." Kaba, Yimeng, and Duolong did not say anything further, immediately turned around and left hastily with a little panic. Shi Yan looked at Di Shan, Yu Rou, and Yi Tian-Imo with surprise as they still stayed. "Don't need you to be worried. I have already prepared. As soon as you leave the city, my people will catch up." Yi Tian-Imo said. "Di Shan and I have planned everything. Once we send out our message, the people of the two tribes will depart at the same time with us. Our wings race is quite close to the Sound Beast Mountain. When we arrive there, perhaps our people might have already been there. Yuro said with a smile, seemed not to be worried. Shiryen, I did not expect that you were that provident. You've known that the termination day of the Sound Beast Mountain is also the day that we have to leave. It's obvious. Shiryen said with a smiley face, looking ahead and continued, it seems like we have to delay 1 or 2 days for Kaba and the others to prepare. Whenever they are ready, we can depart right away. We can go now. Dishan seemed a little impatient. No need to worry about the other guys. Breaking the shelter also needs some time. Perhaps when you are done with it, they should have already been there. So, Shiryen thought for a moment, then said, that's good. Shiryen spoke to Tianmo while looking at Panja, the other warriors, and the 4 frightened girls who were just walking out of the stone chamber. You help me take them along. They are still useful to me. Tianmo raised his eyebrows and coldly said, didn't you need to use these 4 virgins in order to have prevented your backfire energy? Shiryen nodded, my fortune is still good. I have not encountered any anomalies while cultivating. However, after breaking the shelter, I don't know if it will occur. That's why I've asked you to help me bring them along. In short, those girls are my possessions. Do you have any problem with that? Dishan and Yuro both looked at Tianmo with a questioning look. Tianmo slightly harumphed, then replied with a frigid face, I will have them come along. Do you have any other requests? None other. Shiryen glanced at the 4 girls, then turned to Dishan, Yuro, and said, we can go now. Let's go. Yuro walked over to Shiryen and placed her white hand on Shiryen's shoulder. Her snow-white wings flapped slightly. She gently leaped up at the same time and quickly disappeared out of other sight. I'll let you handle these people, Dishan said to Tianmo before leaving. Tianmo raked over Chao Jilan, Panja, and the others with a somber countenance. His white-gray pupils flared up some strange lights. Flows of his soul consciousness, one by one, flew out from his eyes, quietly sneaked into their heads. The way that Tianmo used his spiritual forces were much more skillful than Shiryen's. When his soul consciousness penetrated into their souls, even Chao Jilan totally did not realize nor felt it at all. His soul sensing did not leave any clear traces like Shiryen's, but it made the others feel as if there were hundreds of worms creeping in, bringing them a great deal of fear. Chao Jilan, He Qingman, and the others were very insecure. They did not dare to look at Tianmo, as they did not know what he had wanted to do to them. A long time later, Tianmo deliberately retreated his soul consciousness, coldly harumphed, and said, you guys follow me. After having investigated for a while, he discovered that Shiryen had removed the soul formation technique planted in them. Even inside the 4 girls' heads, there were no formation technique that bounded their powers. However, there appeared many mysterious formation techniques which had been placed deeply in the other male warriors' souls that the ordinary people could have had hardly felt them. The 3 girls, that included Chao Jilan, Gu Linglong, and Qi Yanqing, could not have avoided it either. Shiryen had also planted the spirit seeds in the 3 girl souls. Those 3 spirit seeds were going to germinate, which meant that in the future, once they left Shiryen's soul consciousness could have been able to sense every single move of theirs. Only He Qingman's soul had not been touched. Tianmo could certainly have removed those spirit seeds before they rooted. However, he was worried when he saw Shiryen again. Shiryen would not easily let it go, but would have definitely troubled him. While thinking to himself how cruel Shiryen was, he leaped up and flew away. Not long after that, Tianmo's message was sent to Yifeng's group. Following Tianmo's order, they alternatively brought Panja and the others along, flying up to the sky towards the Sound Beast Mountain. Inside the ancient city, all the demonic Sound Clan's people started the preparations after receiving their leader's direct order. Tianmo's flock were already departing in line out of the city. Meanwhile, Kaba's and Yimeng's people were very anxious. Under the pressure of their leader's shouts and urges, they hurriedly packed their stuff, cleaned up their properties in panic. Everything became a mess. Even though many of the demonic Sound Clan's people were nervous, confused, and busy, all of them had a cheerful face as if they seemed not to realize the danger ahead. The only thing in their minds was that they finally could have returned to their ancestral land. The three leaders kept putting a lot of good things about their ancestral land into their people's minds. Therefore, every single of them had imagined that the ancestral land to be a holy place where they could have everything. They felt that all of the good things there belonged to them. At the Sound Beast Mountain, where its peak pierced straight up to the sky, numerous sound beasts had spread out at every corner. Hundreds, thousands of them were gathering, feeling extremely insecure. They all got out of their caves, all in a sudden, as if they felt that the danger was coming closer. Deep in the sky, lightning was striking and the wild wind was growling. All were furious. Dazzling lightning, one by one, flashed on and off quickly in the sky. Deep inside of the lightning, many brilliant, colorful lights segregated, which were actually the rifts of the time and space continuum. They contained the tremendous heavenly power that could have eradicated all life. Any pagans of the demonic Sound Clan or the Wings race knew that in the sky above the Sound Beast Mountain's peak, there concealed heavenly powers, which were capable of destroying any warriors of the true God realm. They all knew that the heavenly power's existence was the warrior's nemesis that prevented the pagans of the two tribes from ever getting out of this place. The phenomenal scene in the sky scared the sound beasts out of their wits, as well as panicked the two tribes' pagans who were having feelings that a murderous accident could come at any time. Boom! A flow of dazzling heavenly light suddenly projected from the sky. The heavenly light was like a giant sickle, striking down straight into the Sound Beast Mountain's peak. As soon as the heavenly light visibly appeared, a block of hundreds-meter-long ancient stone had been cut off from the Sound Beast Mountain's peak, violently falling down. Right when the heavenly light swept over a growling giant sound beast, the beast turned into a mist of blood just in a blink, leaving nothing behind. That was an extremely catastrophic death. Many of the sound beasts terrifyingly growled and howled, instinctively retreated into the Sound Beast Mountain. They didn't dare to have stuck their heads out. While the heaven was showing its intimidation and mightiness, Shiger, who was brought here by Uro, arrived at the foot of the Sound Beast Mountain with a somber face. Chapter 263, Watch Me. A flash of heavenly light struck down, turning the giant and aggressive sound beasts instantly into ashes. It had even cut off a huge block of stone from the Sound Beast Mountain's peak. That was the Heaven Solemn. Deep inside the sky where the thunders were exploding, the heavenly light flashed up dazzlingly. This Heaven Solemn strike shocked every single person of the Wings race's warriors, scared all the sound beasts on the Sound Beast Mountain. Dishan, Uro, Etian Imo, and even Shiger all had extremely serious countenances. They looked up to the major changes happening in the sky and instantly did not know what else to say. That is the punishment force. Every 10,000 years, whenever the two tribes had warriors entering the true God realm, this heavenly light from the sky would strike and burn the warriors into ashes, that nothing remained. Their souls and spirits both perished. Uro looked up to the sky with resentful eyes. This bloody heavenly light has confined the two tribes for tens thousands of years. Dishan and Etian Emo contemplated. Their faces were somber. Shiger knitted his eyebrows looking at the sky above the Sound Beast Mountain with a distressed feeling. He could feel the severely horrendous power there, which likely destroyed both heaven and earth. He even did not dare to send out his soul consciousness to observe around. He felt that once he released his soul consciousness, it would be struck into ashes before it could reach that deep place in the sky. Inside of that place existed the destructive powers that could vanish the warriors at the true God realm. As only being at the Earth realm, if he had riskily gone for a confrontation, death was undoubtedly the only consequence for him. Are you confident? Dishan contemplated for a while. His two eyes squinted, creating a straight line. There seemed to be a spike of electricity that flashed up inside of them. No matter what, you have to break the shelter at the entrance of Sound Beast Mountain. Otherwise, even if we don't attack you when this space is destroyed, you are still unable to escape from this catastrophe. No worries, if I were not sure, I could not have had been calm like this. Shiryen revealed a faint smile, nodded to Yuro. Bring me to the entrance of one cave on the Sound Beast Mountain. Then you guys watch me. Are you sure? Sure. The matriarch of the White Wings clan nodded. Her snow-white hands grabbed Shiryen and instantly flew up to the sky. A white light emerged as Yuro's figure appeared right at the foot of Sound Beast Mountain. Thud, thud, thud. Explosive thunder sounds reverberated from the gloomy sky. Each flash of the lightning from the 9 tiers of the sky, which was as big as a dragon flying and twisting, struck straight at Yuro. Dishan and Etianimo were already floating in the air. As they saw lightning striking down, their faces dramatically changed. They immediately prepared to deal with it. Bang! Thunder and lightning struck down at the flank of the mountain. Rocks were smashed into pieces. When the lightning struck, some of the sound beasts, who had not prepared yet, instantly got incinerated. Yuro reacted rapidly. As soon as that lightning released, she had already teleported to another cave, then quickly let Shiryen down. Boom, boom, boom. Up there, the thunderclap exploded massively as lightning flashed up, tearing off the sky. More and more lightning appeared, as if they had to burn everything on Earth. Yuro, those flashes of lightning were aiming for you. You should leave. Etianimo lifted his head, looking up, quietly observing for a while. He suddenly shouted, "You have not reached the true God realm, so there is no heavenly light striking down at you yet. However, don't underestimate its power. You should not come close to Shiryen because even if you could have avoided it, he would not." Being reminded by Etianimo, Yuro finally understood. She did not dare to stay with Shiryen. Instead, she teleported back outside the mountain. Soon after that, her delicate and heart-touching body appeared beside Dishan and Etianimo. The thunder and thunderbolt seemed to have instincts. While she was leaving, they kept chasing after her, turning into an electric dragon storming towards her. When the 3 people, Dishan, Etianimo, and Yuro, saw that the electric dragon was terrifyingly dashing forward, they were all ready to confront it. Colorful lights which came from the void were congealed and refined. Conspicuous flows of light emerged from their hands, collided with the twisting electric dragon, and broke it into pieces. It turned out to be tiny streaks of lightning retreating deep into the sky. The shelter over there has been aiming at our 2 tribes indeed. Dishan squinted, raised his head looking up to the sky, then said with a low voice, "As long as we approach closer to the Sound Beast Mountain, the shelter outside will be immediately activated and constantly attack us without letting us off." On the contrary, Shiryen is still unharmed. Yuro and Etianimo sent out their consciousness to observe. They realized that Shiryen had not been attacked by lightning. In the area that he was standing, there weren't any changes. The lightning which had previously been aimed at Yuro also disappeared without leaving any trace. As he is human, he seems not to be struck by the lightning. Etianimo nodded and said, "But it seems that those sound beasts are also afraid of the lightning's attack. Our 2 tribes are not the only target, so are those sound beasts." Don't know why those sound beasts have suddenly become that strange. Dishan nodded, guessing there surely occurred a major change inside of the Sound Beast Mountain. Otherwise, the sound beasts should not have had such strange behaviors. Those sound beasts that have been struck to death by the heavenly light had already reached the 7th level, the strongest ones of all the sound beasts. They were unexpectedly attacked by the shelter. It is very anomalous indeed. Don't mess with them. Wait until Shiryen breaks the shelter. We will then enter the Sound Beast Mountain and see why the sound beasts have behaved that strange," Yuro said with a smile. Dishan and Etianimo slowly nodded. Their eyes were full of hope, looking towards Shiryen's direction. On the flank of the mountain, Shiryen held his breath, calmed his consciousness with a serious face. He slowly gathered forces and released his spirit to make contact with the earth flame inside of the blood vein ring. "Right now, I need your powers to break this damn shelter." "Okay, I have finished my evolution. My forces now are much stronger than before. I can definitely break that shelter. If it's not because my soul is still feeble as it has just formed, only do I need to go out of this ring. I can already burn that shelter quickly." Your soul is not stable now, plus there are many warriors of the demonic Sound clan who have a profound understanding about the souls. As soon as you go out of the blood vein ring, they will attack your soul. They are only afraid of your burning fire powers. But now, your soul has not fused with the burning fire. It's not sure whether you will be able to withstand their soul attack. You should not be reckless. Before your soul and the burning fire could fuse together, don't get out of the blood vein ring. Got it? After discussing with the earth flame, Shiger slowly stretched out his hands towards the cave entrance. Sizzling. Small flames flickered from his fingertips as if there was a spiritual snake curling up out on his palms. Because of this, scorching burning fire hovered around his hands with the extreme heat. The host's soul inside the sea of consciousness quietly moved. Flows of soul consciousness, one by one, scattered from the sea of consciousness, observing small transformations of burning fire on his hands. The blood vein ring was dazzling with red light as each of the fire snakes crawled out of the ring. As soon as fire snakes had got out, Shiger sent his soul consciousness into them. When the fire snakes wrapped around the backs of his hands and his palms, profound chi massively rolled out and assembled with these fire snakes. The solid cave's shelter was burned up by the scorching fire from his hands. Mists of gray smoke came up one by one, dense chi also spread out inaudibly. Many of the sound beasts retracted their heads, staying inside of the cave, and frighteningly watched the heavenly flame flared up from Shiger's hands. They didn't dare to come any closer. Time had been passing by. Both of Shiger's hands were wiggling with the shelter for a long while. The powerful burning fire of the 10,000-year earth flame in the blood vein ring emitted constantly, converging with his soul consciousness. His profound chi turned to the raging heavenly flame, which could have wiped out everything. It was now wildly incinerating that shelter. The invisible shelter, which was being burned by the powerful burning fire, seemed to be broken little by little. Around the stone cave, other forces appeared to support and enhance the shelter's strength. However, they could not resist the heavenly flame's burning power. The shelter, which Shiger's hands were placed on, was getting weaker. The defending forces hidden inside were being consumed bit by bit, about to be completely broken. Kaba, Duolong, and Yimeng also arrived at the Sound Beast Mountain, standing together with the other three people including Dishan, Yuro, and Etianemo. They all stared at Shiger attentively without a second of negligence. Wings Race's pagans and Kaba, Yimeng, the youth of the demonic Sound clan, were all gathering at this place. With just a quick glance, the pagans of the Wings race and the demonic Sound clan were flooding towards the Sound Beast Mountain from all directions. After realizing that the two pagan tribes were bringing all of their members here, many of the Sound Beasts scattering outside went back into the Sound Beast Mountain in fear. They didn't dare to confront these two tribes. Numerous Sound Beasts hopelessly hid inside of the Sound Beast Mountain after seeing their leaders being struck into ashes by a flow of the heavenly light from the sky. Hiding inside of the cave, the Sound Beasts were extremely nervous. They had wanted to go out, but were scared of being ambushed by the people of the Wings race and the demonic Sound clan. They were indeed in a dilemma. Any one of these two pagan tribes could have somehow figured out that inside of the Sound Beast Mountain that there was a major occurrence which could have frightened the Sound Beasts that much. Otherwise, those Sound Beasts would not have been so terrified that they had to hurriedly go out of the caves. Knowing clearly that things were changing abnormally inside of the Sound Beast Mountain, those pagans still hoped that Shiger could have broken the shelter soon. After their 6 leaders had explained to them, these pagans understood that the perdition was coming. If they could not have gotten out of this land, they would have completely disappeared from the world's history. Everybody was frightened. Chao Jia, do you think we can go back to the Kiara Sea? Inside the rattan cage, Gu Linglong's eyes brightened with a hopeful look. I don't know. Let's see what he can do. Chao Zhilan miserably smiled, pointing to Shiger, and said, if I can return to the Kiara Sea and recover my forces, I will definitely torture him to death. Gu Linglong clenched her teeth with full of resentment. Without our family support, none of us is strong enough to be his opponent. Chao Zhilan slightly whined and groaned. Yangqing Emperor is such a genius. He has found that rascal from nowhere. That rascal is such a monster. Even if the Yang family perishes, unless that guy is dead, they still can rebel again. After Panja, Chu Yangqin, and Gu Linglong listened to Chao Jilan, the look on their faces all changed into those of fear. Obviously, they all admitted what Chao Jilan had said was true. All of them had to accept Shi Yan's intimidating strength. Chapter 264. Breaking the Shelter. Scorching flames, one by one, flew out from Shi Yan's hands, all rolling in the cave in front of him. After pulling one another about, the shelter at the cave entrance, which had been blazingly burned by heaven flame, finally seemed not to be able to resist any longer, exposing a small burnt hole. Everybody's faces were excited. Shi Yan's eyes also brightened up as if he could see a ray of glory through that small hole. He put all his efforts to continuously pour the heaven flame's blistering power into that hole. After all the flames of the heaven flame entered that hole, they eroded the cave entrance little by little, quickly enlarged the hole. Dishan, Yuro, and other leaders of 2 pagan tribes showed an extreme joy. It was obvious that with that burning speed, the cave would be soon broken. The hole would be broadened enough for everyone to get in. Lightning flashed up in Dishan's eyes. He contemplated for a while before quietly coming closer to Shi Yan. Duolong and his fellows also followed behind without much hesitation. They all gathered 30 meters away from Shi Yan and kept staring at every single move from him. If they didn't enter the Sound Beast Mountain, they would not have been struck by the lightning from the sky above the peak. The miraculous shelter in the sky seemed to have its own consciousness. It had a duty to make sure that no top-class warriors of the 2 tribes were able to have penetrated into the Sound Beast Mountain. As soon as they moved one step in, this shelter would have been instantly activated, striking down tremendous lightning. Let's wait for a while. Once the cave entrance is enlarged enough, we will enter right away. Dishan turned around, glancing at the other 5 leaders, then said with a serious face, "Everyone should watch out. There's certainly an anomalous change in there. It may be a fatal danger, you should not be contemptuous." 5 of them nodded, implicating they'd already understood. Those 6 peak leaders of 2 tribes were glaring at every move of Shi Yan with stony eyes from a distance of 30 meters away. They were ready to enter at any time. Sweat beaded on Shi Yan's forehead. The fabric on his back was also wet. This was the result of consuming too much power. His body had been trained by the heaven flame for a long time as his vessels and blood were adapting more with the heaven flame's heat. However, burning fires spreading out from the blood vein ring this time were much hotter than any previous times. The extreme heat of the earth flame had successfully transformed, being several times stronger than before. Until now, Shi Yan got to know that the earth flame previously had not been considered as the heaven flame. At best, it had been only considered to be mutated earth flame that hadn't reached the heaven flame's temperature just yet. Nevertheless, the current earth flame had a huge transformation after having absorbed the sun-refined spirits. Not only did it have a complete soul and a perfect living form, but its burning fire power had also been enhanced to another new level. The 10,000 years earth flame somehow had transformed to make a balance with the icy cold flame, which owned a miraculous earth-shaking power. As the earth flame had been enhanced, its burning power was also much stronger than before. Shi Yan almost could not stand it. When he poured profound qi into each flame, a lot of his power had been drained, including his soul consciousness. The heaven flame evaporated his sweat quickly as soon as it continued pouring out again. Even though Shi Yan's whole body was not comfortable, he still tried to restrain it, focused his mind, and kept releasing his soul consciousness. He let his profound qi massively roll into his palms to fuse with flames of the heaven flame to create heaven flame's power with a tremendous attack strength. Sizzling. The heaven flame was burning furiously, making the hole in front of him bigger. Gradually, it was getting as big as a human's head. Shi Yan's face was joyful, but he did not dare to relax now. He kept urging the profound qi inside of his body to pour into the conflagrate burning fires on his hands. The burning fires then flew straight into the hole. Torrential heaven flame was blazing on his hands. There was as if a fire snake wrapping around each of his fingers, twisting and sticking its tongue out. Miraculously, inside of those vivid red flames appeared a faint purple color. That was a strange color resulted by the fusion of the heaven flame, his soul consciousness, and the profound qi. Shiger stretched out his hands through the hole, sending powerful burning fires of the heaven flame to cover them, and then forcefully tore the hole apart. More and more heaven flames burning fires flew up from the backs of his hands and his palms. The 1,000-year earth flame had sensed his urge, emitting stronger burning fires to support Shiger tearing the hole. Swoosh! A crispy sound suddenly came up from that hole. Shiger's hands had violently pulled and tore that hole, which had been originally as big as a human head size. Now the hole was big enough for an adult to get through. Go! Dishan shouted as his black wings flapped hastily. He flashed up like a black lightning and disappeared instantly. Shiger got bewildered for a while. Before he could realize what was happening, Dishan had already gone through the shelter, getting inside of the Sound Beast Mountain. Not far from that, after seeing Dishan's action, Yuro and Etianimo also turned into flows of light without hesitation, going inside of the Sound Beast Mountain with a blinding speed. At the foot of the Sound Beast Mountain, people of the Wings race and the demonic Sound clan began to cheer and applaud. All of them were extremely joyful. They soon congratulated each other. Some of them even started drinking to celebrate. A few of the high-class warriors leaped up and flew towards Shiger's direction. At this moment, cheerful sounds and noises echoed crazily. After being dazed, Shiger saw the 10 warriors of 2 tribes approaching closely. They were about to jump into the cave entrance. Boom, boom, boom. An earth-shaking thunder sound suddenly came up from deep inside the sky. Horrendous streaks of lightning covered the entire Sound Beast Mountain entirely, all in a sudden, just like a heavy shower. Simultaneously, the Sound Beast Mountain was immersed in a dense net of lightning. With a quick glance, that net of lightning looked like a curtain being pulled down. The scream like ghosts wail and wolves howl also followed the lightning piercing into people's ears. Being struck constantly by those streaks of lightning, the bodies of those Wings races and demonic Sound clan's top-class warriors were immediately incinerated, then fell down not long after having wiggled fiercely in the air. Their bodies exploded before they could have reached the ground. Flesh and blood were scattered everywhere. The 10 warriors of the 2 tribes were dead without leaving any bones in just a short moment. All the pagans, who were standing everywhere around the Sound Beast Mountain, immediately changed their countenances dramatically after seeing the terrifying scene. The cheering noises had also died out. No one could have ever imagined that the 10 Sky Realm warriors could have been struck to death that fast. There was not a single sign, nor a minute spared for preparations. Those 10 warriors were dead, just like that. Those pagans, who had been cheerful, dazedly watched flesh and bones falling down like a heavy blood shower. Everybody ceased suddenly. Some of the other warriors, who had originally wanted to enter the cave, were flying in the air, hurriedly stopped, as they didn't dare to come any closer to the Sound Beast Mountain. Shiger's complexion had also changed tragically. Soon after that, he realized that while he got dazed, the hole, which had been torn apart, was slowly shrinking. After raising his eyebrows with a little hesitation, he then suddenly jumped through the shelter, entering inside of the Sound Beast Mountain. Shriek, shriek, shriek. Ear-piercing growls of sound beasts resounded as soon as he got into the Sound Beast Mountain. Echoing growls of sound beasts were not less loud than the ones of thunderbolts outside. While earth-shaking sounds kept coming up, 6 figures of Dishan and other 5 leaders were getting further and further, dashing towards the center of the mountain. Yuro was the last one of the line. The matriarch of the White Wings clan held a charming figure, waiting for the other 5 figures to disappear. She looked at Shiger from a distance, then gently said, "Let's go in there together." Shiger was startled. He hesitated a little before saying, "Don't you need me to keep this shelter open?" Yuro revealed a faint smile, gently shaking her head. "If you've been able to break it, you can also do the same from the inside. Wait until we solve the problem inside the mountain, then you will break this shelter again. With the thunder and lightning outside that close the cliff, no one else can go in. You only uselessly waste your powers if you stay here. We don't know how long it would take in there. Until we can solve the problem inside, if your powers have already been drained by that time, It would have really been such a waste. Shigen nodded, determinedly stopped holding the shelter open. He zoomed towards Yuro. Shigen, Yuro suddenly lowered her voice when he arrived next to her. What happened? Shigen asked with a low voice. A suspicious look showed up on his face. Be careful. Yuro gently spoke up after hesitating. You should not keep yourself too far away from me to avoid any unexpected events. You also need to be aware of Duolong and the other 3 leaders of the demonic Sound Clan. Perhaps you will be their target there. Shigen frowned and said, Don't they need me to break the shelter? It's hard to say. Yuro's face got serious. You've probably realized that when thunder and lightning cover the outside of the mountain, the shelter inside of the Sound Beast Mountain starts to be weakened. If we can enter here, it means the shelter is not effective anymore. After we solve the problems inside of the mountain, the oppressive forces of the shelter may no longer exist. Until then, you don't have any value to them. Shigen's face suddenly changed. He nodded firmly after thinking for a while. I understand. As I have promised, as long as you break the shelter, I will try my best to protect you. I will keep my words. Even though Yuro was inside of a dark, dull cave, her eyes, on the contrary, were very bright. I will try my best, but if it does not happen as I wanted, don't blame me. Shigen still felt warm although he was inside of a chilly, dark cave. He bravely placed his hands on Yuro's wings and honestly said, I will still be grateful to you. Suddenly, the body of the matriarch of the White Wings clan reddened as her charming face also blushed. Her beautiful eyes got mused while her body was slightly shivering. Oh! Shigen asked with surprise, Are you okay? Little pervert. Yuro angrily stared at him. However, she had no power to resist. She was even more exquisitely dainty and ravishingly beautiful that all men would have surely committed a crime. Clenching her teeth tightly, Yuro scolded, Don't you really know that the wings of the Wings race's girls are even more sensitive than our breasts and preserved area? We are not allowed to let any of the opposite genders touch them. I didn't know. Shigen looked shocked, innocently shaking his head. Chapter 265, The 9 Serenities' Soul-Devouring Flame. In the murky stone cave, looking at Shigen's innocent appearance, the matriarch of the White Wings clan felt so angry that she just wanted to smash him down. However, thinking about the unknown problems inside the mountain, she had to restrain her irritations. She stared at him with her fiery eyes, forcefully pulled his hands, and flew into the center of the mountain. With the flame of anger inside, Yuro's movements were not gentle at all. Her small hands were like a pair of metal pincers, secretly squeezing Shigen's hands. Oh! Although Yuro continuously put more strength to the squeeze, she realized that Shigen did not utter a word as if he did not feel the pain. With her astonishment, she kept tensioning her clamp. Yuro was surprised. The strength that she was using was enough to break the Nirvana Realm warrior's bones. Nevertheless, even though Shigen was just ranked 2nd sky of the Earth Realm, he was still all right, only slightly knitted his eyebrows. Do you think it is enough? As Yuro kept squeezing harder and harder, Shigen had to reluctantly say, If you keep doing that, I can't help but scream. You have already discharged your anger. Don't continue torturing me. You little rascal, you are no ordinary indeed. Your meridians seem to transform and contract continuously. Each of them is very peculiar, as if some strange energy keeps condensing and refining in it. Yuro still clamped his hands tightly. She did not have any intentions to reduce the strength of her fingers. She continued to speak with a gentle voice and a very strange look. Shigen, your body is not the same as ordinary people's. I have a vague feeling that the meridians in your entire body seem to have great differences compared to the regular ones. What did you do after all? She still wanted to explore all secrets inside Shigen's body. Last time when she had returned to the ancient city, she had found out that there were peculiar forces in Shigen's blood and vessels which repressed his immortal blood. She had some understanding about the antiquity time secrets, so she couldn't imagine if any forces could dominate the immortal blood in the immortal God King's descendant. She guessed that Shigen was still hiding an earth-shaking secret. She somehow realized that there were mysterious forces whose strength were as strong as the one of the immortal blood inside his body. Otherwise, the immortal blood could not be easily dominated like this. Nothing. Shiryen shook his head. He had to keep anything related to the mystery martial spirit on the down low. He would not disclose anything to anyone. Not to mention it was Yuro. Even if Xia Xinyan asked him, he would still shut his mouth. Shiryen, maybe you don't know yet, but I have told Dishan about your situation. Yuro suddenly spoke up after contemplating for a while. Dishan is an arrogant person who has a high-level cultivation and brutal means. In the demonic Sound clan and the Wings race, Dishan can be considered the number one of all the top-class warriors. Even I could hardly be his rival. If you can have Dishan's support, once he decides to follow the ancestors' guidance, he will accept you to be his master. Moreover, he will also protect your life, so you don't need to worry about your safety. After leaving this abandoned land, you will have tremendously powerful backup forces. With the unity of Dishan and me, as well as your Heaven Flame, which is the nemesis of the demonic Sound clan, perhaps you will be able to subdue the demonic Sound clan. Don't you understand what this means? What? Shiryen looked shocked. His eyes brightened up. Apparently, he had been touched. However, Dishan is extremely arrogant. Even though you are the immortal God King's descendant, you are just an Earth Realm warrior. Obviously, it's not easy to make him obey you. Yuro continued, therefore, if you want to get Dishan's agreement, you have to show more of your capabilities. You shouldn't keep hiding them. Otherwise, unless Dishan sees your real competencies, he will not respect you nor treat you like a future top-class warrior. Yuro gently explained to him the situation. Shiryen listened attentively. After Yuro had finished talking, he nodded slowly and said, I understood. As Shiryen looked like he had grasped the seriousness of the situation, Yuro said no more and slightly smiled. She suddenly accelerated, turned into a white halo and dashed towards the center of the mountain. Roam, roam. Shriek, shriek. Deep inside the mountain, the sound beast's growls resounded constantly. The earth was violently shaken by those ear-splitting sounds together with the thunders outside the mountain. Yuro, with Shiryen being grabbed along, flew straight inside of the mountain. The initially gloomy cave turned to be as black as ink as it was impossible to see the surroundings. However, as Yuro knew every single path inside the mountain, she could still follow the directions of Dishan and Etianemo. She was rapidly chasing after them. It was uncertain of how much time had passed. Shiryen suddenly heard, besides the sound beast's growls, a big explosion that was caused by some attacking forces. At the same time, Yuro's figure slowed down. A faint silver light was approaching them, lighting up the dark cave. Dishan! Yuro shouted in shock. She let go of Shiryen and stormed forwards. Boom, boom, boom. Incredibly horrendous powers collided and consecutively exploded in the cave. Huge blocks of lava rock instantly turned into ashes, dispersing everywhere in the cave after being hit by those forces. Shiryen stood on a solid lava rock. He wanted to have a clear view of the scene in front of him, but thick gray dust blocked his vision. A lot of dust had flown into his eyes, causing the irritating itchiness. Right after he had released his soul consciousness, it detected that a kind of soul's magnetic field was revolving inside of the cave. That soul's magnetic field instantly crushed down his soul consciousness. The consciousness attached with the soul consciousness also left no trace behind. He immediately got himself together in fear. He did not dare to send out his soul consciousness again. Instead, he just circulated the profound chi to his eyes, covering his pupils with a layer of the profound chi shield. Even when he could not see what was happening inside the cave nor released his soul consciousness, it didn't mean that he could not sense anything. Furious forces were striking and destroying many blocks of rock of the Sound Beast Mountain. Rock fragments scattered, and dust was everywhere. Through the surging tremor, he was certain that top-class warriors were fighting somewhere in the cave. Yuro had terrifyingly shouted when she had seen Dishan's enemy. Therefore, she urgently let go of Shiryen and dashed towards Dishan. Even though Dishan was the best of the top-class warrior of the demonic Sound clan and the Wings race, with the given brutal situation, his opponent was either the Sound Beast's supreme leader or the most bloodthirsty monster of the world. Regardless of who it was, Dishan's enemy was not the one whom he had the ability to defeat. Therefore, Shiger stood right at his place motionlessly, calming himself and waiting. A faint red light appeared in the dark cave. It flickered, then scattered around. Dust and ashes blocking his vision were blown away by invisible forces. So were the dust and ashes around Shiger. Oh! Shiger was astonished, surprisingly looked at the blood vein ring on his finger. He saw the red light flying out from the blood vein ring. Wherever the red light swept over, Shiger's vision was not blocked anymore. Everything around him became clearer. This was a huge cave. The red light kept diffusing further, clearing all the dust and ashes. Shiger was watching the cave expanding endlessly. A brown jade was hanging at 30 meters above his head. Its surface was full of holes which were as big as fingertips. Dense sky and earthine aura hovered around it. This place was certainly the core of the Sound Beast Mountain. His eyes followed the red light which was expanding further, until the red light could cover an area that as large as 5 football fields combined. He suddenly saw many pairs of eyes flashing up different colored lights. While the red light continued diffusing, figures of those who possessed those eccentric eyes gradually appeared. Sound beasts were everywhere, hundreds or thousands of them. From a distance, each of them was staring at him with full of hatred. Shiger obviously was not frightened. He only revealed a faint smile. A red halo of burning fire suddenly emerged from his palms, and the heaven flame's power emitted from his body. The sound beasts were apparently scared, moving backward little by little. Where's this place? The icy aura of the ice-cold flame flew out from the blood vein ring all in a sudden. The ice-cold flame sent out its message. The sky and earthine aura here is very dense. Inside of it contains the icy-ine aura that could destroy souls. This is. Has the blood vein ring removed the restraint on you already? Shiger promptly replied in joy. The blood vein ring has realized that the danger is coming. Moreover, because the current living form of the earth flame has completely formed already, it no longer controls me. The ice-cold flame quickly answered him. Then, it suddenly urged Shiger, leave this place. It's extremely dangerous here. The ine aura here could destroy the souls of any beings. It is. What? It is the 9 Serenities' soul-devouring flame, one of the heaven flames, the most parlous one. Its burning fires cannot inflame real entities, but it can destroy all souls of any creatures. Any subject that has a life can hardly resist its devouring fire. As soon as the devouring fire touches your body, it will immediately burn your soul to ashes. Have you said that it's there? It is right there. I can feel it. You'd better leave right away. Boom, boom, boom. Aggressively fighting sounds, along with Yuro's screams, came up from the earth-shaking growls and howls. Shiger's face changed dramatically. He immediately looked towards that direction. The blood vein ring's red light spread out, blowing away dust and ashes around Shiger. His vision became gradually clearer. With a careful look, he realized that some figures were fighting with several sound beasts where the explosion had occurred. This flock of sound beasts was extremely aggressive with no fear of death. Their giant bodies were covered with scales, which looked terrifying and ferocious. Those beasts were emitting heavy ine aura. Their eyes' color was all silver. Those eyes were attached to the body that was greatly vigorous as if they were made of cast iron. These sound beasts were not the same as the ordinary ones. Although they were very mighty, there was no streak of vitality in them as if their souls had been completely withdrawn. Their entire bodies were full of deadly aura. These sound beasts were giving the pagan leaders, Dishan, Yuro, Duolong, a very hard time in fighting with them. That is the 9 Serenities spirit beasts. The 9 Serenities soul-devouring flame have used the 9 Serenities yin-chi to condense and refine those sound beasts. As they don't have souls, they won't feel painful or being wary of death. Their powers are even stronger when they are dead. It is very hard to deal with these zombie spirit breasts. Except turning them into ashes, otherwise, even with only a bone remaining, the 9 Serenities soul-devouring flame could still control them to attack other people. The ice-cold flame explained. A beam of fear flashed across Shiger's eyes. Chapter 266. Peculiar treasure appeared. The 7 dead spirit beasts looked as if they were made of cast iron with furious powers and full of benevolent energy. None of them had the aura of a living thing. However, they had lightning speed and tremendous strength. When they leaped up, they pulled the heaven and earth along with them, which led to the increase of their energies and the horrendous destructive powers. The 7 dead spirit beasts seemed to protect something. A dark and sinister area was behind them, from which extremely dense fluctuating aura spread out, floating in the air. It was like many flows of the soul oppressive forces were dispersing, subduing the others' minds and bodies, bringing them violently feelings of insecurities. Among the 6 leaders of the 2 pagan tribes, Etian and Mo, Ka-Ba, and Yimeng all had the spirit realm soul cultivations. Although their bodies were feeble, their soul powers were enough to fearlessly deal with most of the creatures there. However, when confronting those soulless dead spirit beasts, the 3 leaders of the demonic Sound clan with tremendous soul power became inefficient, just like something that was used to decorate their powers. The only thing they could do now was to intertwine those 7 spirit beasts with their feeble bodies. The consequences could not have been easily imagined. Losing the biggest advantage, together with their weak bodies, the 3 leaders of the demonic Sound clan were having a tough time fighting with those beasts. Once those beasts attacked them, they couldn't do anything but dodge and didn't dare to directly confront them. As the result, the pressure of fighting against the 7 dead spirit beasts obviously fell on the other 3 leaders of the Wings race. Although the 3 of them, Dishan, Yuro, and Duolong were much better than the other 3, they still could not have gained the initiative in the combat. The dead spirit beasts originally had no souls but had a sturdy build. Moreover, these 7 beasts had used the bodies of the 7th-level sound beasts that have cultivated for thousands of years. Thanks to this fact, their mighty bodies' advantages were amplified several times. They were not scared of any weapons or different kinds of energy attacks. Among the 3 leaders of the Wings race, Duolong was at the 3rd level of the Sky Realm, half a step away from the Spirit Realm. With his sturdy build and furious strength, he was definitely a first-class warrior outside of the mountain. The other 2, Dishan and Yuro, were stronger than Duolong. They were both at the reputable first sky of the Spirit Realm warriors. However, they were still struggling with those beasts strenuously despite their unity. Their attacking forces unlikely crushed those spirit beasts into pieces. If those beasts were not smashed into ashes, they would not have gotten injured. With the support of the heaven and earth from behind, they would have continued receiving energy from endless sources. As long as the heaven and earth was everlasting, and the spirit beasts' bodies were not completely destroyed, their energy would never have been depleted, and their attacks would have kept going on. The 7 spirit beasts' movements were as fast as the lightning. Their speed was even faster than that of the Wings race's leaders. Their energies were extremely ferocious. Shiger used his sense to carefully observe the situation. He realized that the 7 dead spirit beasts could have gone through the mountain effortlessly. Their movements were lightning-like. Every time that they moved forward, their giant bodies had unexpectedly traveled dozens of meters deep through the lava rock mountain wall. It was like a huge drill, which could easily pierce through the hard and solid mountain wall. At this moment, he understood that because the dead spirit beasts' attacking strength were so tremendous that they were able to break through everything, like perforating the mountain wall. The 7 dead spirit beasts violently surrounded and pursued to kill the 6 leaders in the cave. Under the attack of the beasts, it was as if they were encountering their archenemies. Their faces were extremely somber while trying to use all kinds of forces to kill the beasts. Dishan's and Yuro's strikes on the beasts were as if they had collided with a 300,000-kilogram mountain wall. Those beasts were shot out more than 100 meters away. Their bodies were devastated into pieces, yet unable to have been completely destroyed. As their soul attack was not efficient, the 3 leaders of the demonic Sound clan were in a strenuous situation. Their feeble bodies were not able to resist the dead spirit beasts' attacks. If they were not very flexible and agile in dodging, they should have been out of breath and dead in no time. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Suddenly, the dense heaven and earth emitted from the 7 dead spirit beasts. The space was immediately filled with peculiar dead spirit aura. Some of the sound beasts, which were hiding from a distance, all scattered away as soon as they saw the dispersing heaven and earth een. More than 10 of the sound beasts that weren't able to avoid it were completely enveloped by this peculiar een. With their miserable growls, their fluctuating souls became very strange. Their living aura was disappearing, which was being replaced with the intensified dead spirit aura little by little. Not long after that, more than 10 of the sound beasts under the cover of the peculiar een aura started to get crazy. They seemed to have transformed into the dead spirit beasts and began to attack the 6 leaders. These dead spirit beasts, which had just been transformed from the sound beasts, could not have obviously been compared to the other 7 ones. Their bodies were not as sturdy and their strength was far less than the others. That was why when these new-formed beasts were attacked by the 6 leaders, they were soon completely smashed until their blood scattered everywhere. But very soon after that, those 7 dead spirit beasts leaped up quickly. More and more of the heaven and earth een emitted surrounding them. Hundreds of the sound beasts ran away outwards from the cave in fear. However, they quickly got covered by the heaven and earth een before being able to have gotten away. All the sound beasts inside of the mountain had been turned into dead spirit beasts after a short while. They started to aggressively attack the 6 leaders without fear of death. The burning fires of the heaven flame emitted abruptly from Shiger's body. His face was grievous. He had figured out that the sound beasts had to run away out of the mountain because they were scared of the dead spirit beasts inside of the mountain. To be more exact, the 9 Serenities soul-devouring flame that those dead spirit beasts were protecting. It was because the 9 Serenities soul-devouring flame could destroy their souls and turn them into the soulless dead spirit beasts. These sound beasts obviously knew the power of that 9 Serenities soul-devouring flame. After the shelter inside of the mountain had been weakened, they felt insecure, realized that the 9 Serenities soul-devouring flame was getting developed. Therefore, they ran out of the mountain to avoid being turned into the dead spirit beasts by the 9 Serenities soul-devouring flame. If the demonic sound clans and the Wings race people hadn't invaded it, the sound beasts certainly would not have stayed inside of the mountain. Currently, inside of the mountain, hundreds of the sound beasts who were close to the 9 Serenities soul-devouring flame could not have avoided its attack. Their souls were destroyed as they were turned into the dead spirit beasts. In such a short time, the spirit beasts were packed inside of the cave. After the sound beasts' souls had been destroyed, they were no longer being fearful. They were not even scared of the heaven flame's power on Shiger's body, storming towards him. "Let's go." The ice-cold flame sent out its message. "Let me help you." The Thousand Earth flame also communicated with him from the blood vein ring. Boom. Scorching burning fires from Shiger expanded everywhere. The Thousand Earth flame flew out from the blood vein ring all of a sudden, emitting its inflammable power when it saw more than 10 of the spirit beasts were approaching. The temperature of the mountain plummeted several times instantly with burning fires everywhere. Every time the dead spirit beasts advanced, they were completely swallowed by the Thousand Earth flame in no time. Once these beasts fell into the sea of fire, they had no more strength to resist and turned to the scattered shower of blood. All of them were dead. The burning fires of the heaven flame continued spreading out. The heaven flame devoured more and more dead spirit beasts. Once being burned by the Thousand Earth flame, none of the dead spirit beasts could withstand it. Everywhere that the heaven flame had passed by the spirit beasts, they were incinerated into ashes that nothing remained. Even the 7 dead spirit beasts, which had been tempered by the 9 Serenities soul-devouring flame, could not have prevented the horrendous burning fires of the Thousand Earth flame. 3 of them had been wrapped up in the flames. They were wriggling and being dissolved little by little into dark red masses. Then the heating power would evaporate them into a mist of smoke. As the other 4 dead spirit beasts seemed to sense the danger, even before the burning fires of the Thousand Earth flame came close, they all hid together deep inside of the dark without lingering. "Stop." From deep inside of Shiger's soul, a strong vibration came up. Shiger was very frightened. His head was in extreme pain. At the same time, he saw 2 strange flows of souls approaching towards the Thousand Earth flame. The Earth Flame soul immediately returned to the blood vein ring as soon as it realized that danger was coming. The burning fires also withdrew into the blood vein ring after the thousand earth flame soul went back into it. Those two flows of souls belonged to Kaba and Yimeng. After hovering around the blood vein ring and realizing it was not easy to have penetrated it, the two flows were retrieved. Shiryen harumphed, coldly looked at Tian Emo, who was standing 100 meters away from him. The Heaven Flame's power is indeed terrifying. Even though it can be used to deal with those peculiar dead spirit creatures here, the three of us cannot endure it either. If you let it expand, the three of us will be burned into ashes. Tian Emo said. Shiryan's eyes remained frigid. Little rascal, don't you want to kill us all? If your Heaven Flame doesn't have the ability to dominate these strange creatures, I would have savaged your soul already. Yimeng wiped his sweat off. He was the one who was standing closest to Shiryen. When the Heaven Flame diffused towards his direction, he got really frightened. His powers had been drained more than half, even though the Heaven Flame hadn't come close to him yet. That was why he got angry with Shiryen the most. Hiss, 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 hiss. For dead spirit beasts, which had just hidden in the dark, released bizarre whistles. A flying shuttle flashed up a sparkling light which was on and off inside of the darkness. It seemingly wanted to get out but was detained by some unknown forces. It kept struggling as it was not able to escape. A flow of anomalous soul came out from the dark where the 4 dead spirit beasts were hiding. It's the 9 Serenities soul devouring flame. That thing seems to be sealed. Right now, its forces are increasing. The seal power will get weakened soon. Leave now. Once it wakes up, no one can resist him. The ice-cold flame hurriedly communicated with Shiryen. Shiryen was still motionless as if he did not hear what the ice-cold flame had said. He kept looking forward with a contemplating face. His eyes lit up, wide open, as he was looking at the flying shuttle, which was hovering around in the dark. He seemed to consider something. 5 seconds later, Shiryen was crazily cheerful. His entire body was shaking. He couldn't help but shout, "Skybreaking shuttle." Hope you are still enjoying the thrilling novel. See you guys again on Wednesday. I need rest. Chapter 267, I Can Help You. Skybreaking shuttle was an extraordinary treasure in the legends. It could tear off the sky or break any kind of shelters. It kept flying around in the darkness and emitted sharp lights consecutively. Each stream of the lights seemed to be able to destroy everything. They were dispelling the darkness, shattering the wall of the cave into pieces. Eventually, it hollowed out the Sound Beast Mountain, creating a huge bottomless hole. As the darkness had been dispersed, the scene inside there was gradually revealed. The first thing that struck Shiryen's eyes was the 3 sparkling small silver strings which were wrapping around the end of the shuttle, pulling it so that it could not fly away. The other end of the 3 silver strings hid inside the darkness so they could not be seen as of now. Being wrapped around by the 3 silver strings, the skybreaking shuttle, as it had lost its owner, no longer promoted its true attributes. Instead, it could only fly disorderly in the air. It wasn't able to escape from the 3 silver strings. Those 6 leaders were standing 100 meters away from the skybreaking shuttle. They all had a somber countenance. All were motionlessly concentrating at that area. Yuro had heard his shout from the distance. She turned around and asked, "Shiryen, do you know it?" Shiryen nodded and replied honestly, "That is the skybreaking shuttle. I had entered the chasm battlefield because of it. It is said that this thing can tear off every partition of space and break all kinds of shelters. Because its owner has been lost, otherwise it would not have been restrained by anything." The 6 leaders' faces brightened up in joy. The ancestors' guidance was not fake indeed. At the time the Sound Beast Mountain vanishes, we can find a way to go back. Duo Long laughed out loud while pointing to the shuttle, which was wriggling nonstop. That thing was obviously prepared for us. As long as we can get it, we will be able to get out of this damn place for real. There is Heaven Flame over there, but it is the most brutal and anomalous of the Heaven Flames. Shiryen warned them after musing for a while. What? Tian Mo's expression changed dramatically. He could not help but move backward a few steps. It looked obvious that he was extremely scared of something that was hiding inside the darkness over there. You've just said that another kind of Heaven Flame exists inside there. How could you know? Dishan asked. The other people were also suspicious, looking at Shiger, waiting for his explanation. Heaven flames could sense each other, thus, they know of each other's existence. Shiger walked forward slowly. He was cautious when he looked at Etian-Mo, Dishan, and Yuro. He explained, the heaven flame there should be the 9 Serenities' soul-devouring flame. In legends, it has existed since the beginning of the heaven and earth. It cannot burn substances, but it can burn any creature's souls. The 9 Serenities' soul-devouring flame. The 3 leaders of the demonic sound clan screamed out simultaneously with a traumatic change on their faces. They all moved backward to Shiger's direction. Not good. Dishan's eyes sparked out a solemn light. A crystal suddenly flew out from his hand. As soon as it came out, it exploded and resulted in a faint blue color which then dispersed quickly, covering him and Yuro inside of it. As Duolong saw Dishan taking out the blue crystal, he was a little astonished. He seemed to remember something and walked over to Dishan's place. Without waiting for Duolong to come closer, Dishan harumphed and looked towards him with unpleased eyes. Duolong felt ashamed, changed his direction embarrassingly, and did not continue approaching that blue aureole. Blue star crystal. The ice-cold flame sense was suddenly sent out. It is one of the extraordinary treasures which is able to resist the 9 Serenities' soul-devouring flame. The blue star crystal is said to be the most mysterious crystal of the blue planet in the galaxy. It projects blue star heaven light, which could prevent the penetration of all kinds of soul's forces. Even if it is the 9 Serenities' soul-devouring flame, it cannot immediately break the blue star heaven light. If you can get inside of its protection, you are certainly able to sustain the 9 Serenities' soul-devouring flame for a while. I've actually prepared this crystal to deal with your demonic sound clan. I didn't expect that I have to use it now. Dishan caressed the precious crystal, pouring more of his powerful forces into it to stimulate the miraculous halo inside it. He said with a regretful tone, the blue star crystal is the consuming object. Its power is limited. The longer it is used, the more power it consumes. I am not sure how long this blue star crystal can last. We can use this blue star light to enter that place over there. Even the 9 Serenities' soul-devouring flame cannot instantly destroy our souls. As long as we can prevent it long enough to get the shuttle out, we will go back immediately. What do you think? Yuro suggested. Dishan nodded after contemplating for a while. He said nothing more, stepped towards the shuttle, which was flying deep inside the darkness. Duolong and the other 3 leaders of the demonic sound clan all showed their surprise. They wanted to advance with Dishan and Yuro, but they were still scared. Thus, they had to stay at their location with confused faces. You can go as well. If you hide inside the blue starlight's protection, the 9 Serenities' soul-devouring flame cannot harm you. Who knows, perhaps you would be able to tame it. The ice-cold flame communicated with Shiger. What? Shiger's face changed slightly. Is it possible to tame the 9 Serenities' soul-devouring flame? How could it be? I don't know, but your devilish ring does. The ice-cold flame continued, heaven flame, earth flame, and I are all confined inside of this ring. If it's not because the ring's spirit has loosened, none of my forces can be released. If this ring can confine both of us, it must be strong enough to deal with the 9 Serenities' soul-devouring flame. As long as your soul is not instantly destroyed, you actually have a chance. Sounds right. Shiger felt excited. He suddenly walked faster towards Dishan and Yuro. Dishan, who was leading, stopped abruptly. He turned his head looking at Shiger and shouted with a cold face, "What did you come here for?" "I can help you." "What?" The 9 Serenities' soul-devouring flame is extremely dangerous. Even though you have the blue star crystal, you are still scared of its soul-devouring ability. I think I have a way to deal with it. If you let me in, if the 9 Serenities' soul-devouring flame appears and behaves perversely, I can probably detain it. Do you have the ability to detain it? I can't guarantee 100%, but I am still very certain about it. We need to try to see if it's possible or not. Shiger was extremely honest when explaining, currently, I have 2 kinds of heaven flames at hand. Because I can keep these two flames with me, I surely have the experience to deal with that kind of flame there. You should trust me. What? The 6 pagan leaders all screamed out at the same time. They looked at Shiger as if he was a monster. Yuro covered her mouth. Her beautiful eyes were extremely frightened. She said with suspicion, "Did you just say that you have 2 kinds of heaven flame? Aren't you kidding?" Dishan's breath was heavy. His eyes rolled up like a buffalo's eyes. Shiger nodded and replied calmly, "That's right. Besides the earth flame, the other one is the ice-cold flame. Watch it." In a moment, the icy chi of the ice-cold flame spread out over Shiger's body. His body was quickly frozen, turning into a big transparent ice chunk, which was sparking out glorious and splendid lights. 6 pagan leaders goggled their eyes with their mouth wide opened. Dishan reacted after a long while. He waved at Shiger and said, You can come here." While saying, Dishan urged more forces to pour into the blue star crystal. More misty blue lights projected from inside of the blue star crystal. These blue lights seemed to be gradually controlled, condensed into a chunk of lights, forming a human body shape. "Thank you." Shiger was very determined. He retrieved the icy power of his body and quickly returned to normal. He got inside of the chunk of blue lights instantly and leaned closely against Yuro. As standing inside the blue lights, Shiger felt as if he was soaking in an ocean. It felt really comfortable. "Let's go." Dishan waited for Shiger to get in before advancing forwards. He did not want to waste any more powers of the blue star crystal. The other 4 people, Duolong, Etian Imo, Yameng, and Kaba, could only stare at the other 3 getting into the mysterious darkness. Their eyes beamed out a greedy light. They were also interested in the thing called Skybreaking Shuttle. However, as they knew how dangerous the 9 Serenities' soul-devouring flame was, they could only watch it from a distance. Until the 3 people of Dishan disappeared into the darkness, the 4 of them gathered and discussed with each other quietly. The 3 of them, Dishan, Yuro, Shiger, kept walking further in the dark. The distance between them and the shuttle got shortened. Some lights ahead became visible. When 3 of them could see the shuttle clearly, a dazzling halo suddenly emitted in the dark. It was unknown where this halo had come from. A huge block of stone appeared in front of their eyes. The stone platform had an octagonal shape, looked like it was made from some kind of strange inky black lava. The block was as huge as half of a basketball field. A sparkling white chunk of the crystal was as big as a wash basin lay in the center of the stone platform. Inside of this crystal chunk, there was a stirring silver burning flame. Miraculous heaven light struck down to the acute angle of the octagon-shaped platform, which connected to the sky above the Sound Beast Mountain. The heaven light covered the stone and created forces that sealed the crystal chunk as well as the silver flame inside of it. Dense heaven and earth-ine aura from everywhere inside of the Sound Beast Mountain was like they just found a way out. They urgently stormed towards the stone platform, joining the burning fires inside of the crystal chunk, making the silver burning flame become livelier. More and more of the forces were gathering. The 4 dead spirit beasts that had escaped the sea of fire created by the 1,000 earth flame were hiding behind that huge stone platform quietly. Their murderous eyes stared at the invaders who daringly intruded here. The shuttle, which was as long as an arm, was circling around the huge stone, as the 3 radiant silver strings wrapping it connected to the crystal chunk. Despite how much the shuttle was struggling, the 3 silver strings still got it tied tightly that it couldn't be able to get out of the huge stone. "That's good. Your souls would help us get out of this place." An ambiguous, peculiar spirit suddenly came out from inside of the stone. The silver burning flames inside of the crystal chunk condensed into a blurry human face. After receiving more heaven and earth-ine, that face was exposed clearer little by little. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.